And I bring this up because I heard a rumor about Grind Time's catalog being sold for pennies. Who owns those battles now, right? And if they do get put out, I guarantee you, because I've already talked to a few battlers that are on there, they're saying they're gonna sue. They're saying, no, fuck that. And I wasn't consulted about this. I don't know what the language on those contracts are. Now, everyone automatically thinks, oh, that's some white people shit to sue.
No.
Fuck out of here. No, that's some hood shit that we've been missing. We could be getting money from legitimate sources. This isn't being a grifter. This isn't G-ing people. This is legitimately something you worked on that then you get no revenue from, and where's the fairness in that? That's not even legal in other businesses.
I think what it is people have this perception that we are so against the system because the system is against us that we refuse to even use it in our favor.
I kick the fucking door off, take the hinges with the door panel and the wall off. Bodies getting hauled off, limbs getting torn off, leg him with the sword off. He looking like a walking dead zombie trying to crawl off.
You know what? I had a crisis of conscience the other day. Una crisis de conciencia. I said, what the fuck happened? He said, there was a beautiful lady that was down the hall that kept hollering at me. This MILF. Right? And she knows I'm married. She knows I got a kid, all this. She don't care. She want to fuck. And in my mind, I was almost like, yo, I'm going to go over there. And then I thought in my head, how did I react when I found out my father was cheating on my mother? And he said to himself, you know what I thought about? I'm going to be honest with you, Felipe. He said, I thought about how he wasn't just cheating on her by spending time with her. He was cheating us at a time by turning his back on me and my brother and my sister to go satisfy his urges that he couldn't control as a man. And he's like, and when I found out, I lost respect for him, and I cursed him out one day, and I called my father a bitch. And it hurt my father because there was really nothing he could say about it, because he knew that his actions were fucked up. He had a family on the side when my mom was here.
So he had kids and everything?
You know what I'm saying? He had a child with, not kids, but I'm saying he had a child with the mistress or whatever. And he was like, who's to say that this woman won't get pregnant? Who's to say that I won't end up in this situation? And you know what? If my son looked me in the face and called me a bitch or a hoe, what could I say to him? I mean, sure, I could try to discipline him because I'm his father, but am I acting like his father? Or am I acting like a bitch? And that was like, you know, a rare moment for a room where everybody thinks, oh, Dominican niggas are players. No. But like, he was like, nah, this is some real father shit. Like, you have to set an example. And then the lesson became about drug abuse. Like, how about, listen, niggas don't listen. Little niggas don't listen to you say, don't smoke. They watch you roll the L. They don't say, oh, don't do drugs. They watch you hustle and say, oh, well, he got some money from that. It's like they don't learn by you telling them shit. They learn by your example and by showing and proving. Like you say, okay,
I think listening to adults just religiously, like, okay, I'm gonna follow everything you say, goes out the window with the Tooth Fairy and Santa Claus and shit.
But also the fact that, keep it 1,000, like, if you a parent, half of your job is to lie and tell kids that it's gonna be okay when you don't know if it is. Like, how about this? My man was saying some crazy shit. He was like, you know, keep it real. Kobe, the last thing he probably told his little girl was, it's gonna be all right. He had to lie, like every other parent in a plane crash, right? I've been on planes that have fucked up turbulence. We flew all the way to Australia. This shit was. I saw a mom hug a little baby, say, hey, it's gonna be fine, don't worry about it. She didn't fucking know. She's not a pilot. You don't know a fucking thing about that.
But what are you supposed to say?
Exactly. You're supposed to lie. So here's the problem. What if someone else assumes that role over you? And here's where I take you down the rabbit hole.
And you see what I'm talking about? This started off as a barbershop conversation.
So the government lies.
Where we going right now?
They like your parent. They lie to you. But do you have to have those gentle lies to get through life? To give you peace of mind and stability as a kid? Like when your parents said, we'll be okay, we'll find the rent. They never said to you, hey, listen, I know you're 6 years old and you probably have a lot on your plate, but we may not rent this month. No. They try to protect you from that by lying about the financial stability of the house.
It's like Men in
and
Black.
It's okay because I'm trying to protect you from some fucked up shit, some monster that's out there in space.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
That's what they said exactly in Men in Black. I was watching that shit the other day.
I feel like that would cause like chaos,
panic.
If people actually knew the truth.
Yeah,
it would cause chaos.
Because most people can't handle the truth.
Society would fall.
Well, people know the truth
madness.
about. I don't know if that's true. It depends on how it's presented.
Okay, if I said, I'm sorry, we have to allow these companies to poison you people because in reality, if we keep multiplying the way that we do, like this earth is gonna go to shit.
But I think that in many ways, people have already seen that ever present, and I'll say that.
But there's some people that don't.
Right, but I don't mean as an example of that. I just mean an example in general. Like, for example, a bunch of kids get shot in a school shooting here. That's not supposed to happen. But no one's startled by a bus exploding, right, somewhere in Pakistan or Afghanistan. Or in Syria, a bomb lands and 30 kids are dead.
Normal.
No one, because it's been normalized, right? Whereas here, we say, well, those kids weren't supposed to die. Why? Why?
It makes us special.
Other kids were supposed to die, right? So I think that's the part of it that they're also introducing us. Also, I'm not trying to get all, too deep down the rabbit hole, but please also remember that the way that Europeans trained African and indigenous people to relate to death is very different from the way we related it for thousands of years.
Right.
African people celebrated their ancestors passing away to meet up with their other ancestors.
Right.
We didn't get that from Black Panther. That was in the culture for thousands of years.
Right.
Yeah.
Indigenous people, they were mummified probably 1,500 years before Egyptians, always in a fetal position because they believed they would be born into some other plane. So we've always had these things. We've always had these recognitions. But only 500 years ago, we got introduced to the fear and the loathing of Christianity, which is, and in many ways, Catholicism, most of us, which is more of a condition than a religion, which teaches you to be afraid that something's going to happen to you. Well, what happens if nothing that you do in life has any bearing on how you show up on the other side? What if you and Hitler are standing next to each other on the other spiritual side, and he's just like, you know what, I shouldn't have done the shit that I did.
Or just saying,
or you say, hey, you know
it was
what?
necessary.
I should have done the things that I did.
Yeah.
Or this is what happened, and in retrospect, this is how I dealt with anger. Or I was overcompensating for being abused as a child, so I hurt everyone I could in life, and now I see.
Because it's a part of the purpose. Because if Hitler was evil and God created everybody, God knew He was going to create Hitler to be evil, to do the things he do. He was a part of the plan. If you want to look at it like that.
If a person believes in God.
If you are supposed to look at it like that.
Nah, that's what I'm saying.
Which is the other weird part, because under my fingernail live millions of bacteria, right? Some of them may be sentient. They live in a universe where a neutron is the size of the sun, right? And in this tiny fucking universe, some of these creatures may be smarter than human beings. So when they die, is there some ethereal realm for them? Like when you wipe the cold and the shit out your eye in the morning, those are the homes built by generations and generations of dust mites that live in your fucking eyebrow. Keep it real.
That's real, though.
What the fuck I'm talking about?
Is there heaven?
We started with a conversation.
But I'm saying, is there heaven for them? Is there a purgatory?
Turn it off sometimes.
Is there a purgatory for them? Is there a heaven for them? No. So why the fuck is there one for you?
Well, how do you know it's not a heaven for them?
You don't.
Exactly. There you go. There you go.
So it's just as plausible for them to have one as you. So if you believe in one for you, you got to believe in one for them. And if you believe in one for them, then the dogs got to have one, and the cats, and then the praying mantises, and all these little other creatures that have been good or bad or whatever. And then you judge morality based on a scale. So then it becomes a question of
people don't look at it like
person.
that. Yeah.
Like, for example, when you watch those nature movies, if a man attacked a woman that didn't want to have sex and forcibly mated with her, that's rape. That's looked down on by even the hardest people in our society.
Right.
But at what point does an animal transfer into that? Like when you watch a lions and they're mating.
They don't have the brain.
female lion may not want to have sex at that
it's too bad.
Is she being violated? That's the whole point. I think we're talking about us moving away from our animal instinct to try to be, more human, which I thought was interesting because that's how battle rap was invented. to move away from the animal instinct of killing each other in the street and beating the fuck out of each other, or murdering someone you love along with the other people because they just happen to be there. And now we're gonna settle this with a battle of wits. Now we're gonna settle this with a meeting of the minds, and I'm gonna crush you here in your head and destroy you. The art of fighting without fighting, that real Bruce Lee shit.
Yeah,
right?
no,
that's what I mean. So I think it's interesting that conflict is played on that stage.
All right, okay. You were filming all that, right?
Episode 33.
Episode 33. This is
master
how we're
number.
starting. This is how we're starting, man. We got the king is not in the building yet. 33, as usual. Salute to all the subscribers, all the new subscribers. Thank you guys. We hit 70,000 subscribers.
Yeah.
We're at episode 33. Yeah. Clap it up. Clap it up. Clap it up. If you're interested in being a guest on the show, hit My Expert Opinion Podcast at Gmail. And let's just get right into it. Knowledge born, what's the science?
You know, we here with the God, man.
We have a legend. We have a legend. I mean, I don't even, man, there's so many parts of his legendary status to me before I learned all the other things, all the other attributes to this man that makes him so great amongst the masses. He was a legend to me. You feel what I'm saying? And I'm humbled to be able to call this man my friend. However, having a normal conversation with this guy just doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. He's gonna educate you on some sort of level about something. And I appreciate that, bro.
Thank you.
Immortal Technique is in the building.
Real talk.
Moral Technique, My Expert Opinion.
Yes.
Let's rock.
We're here. All right. You were saying that continuing on from this, it started with attempted adultery to a history lesson, and you flowed down the path to your own reflection in your family, and then on to the dust mites that live in
the coal in your eye. So here's an interesting thing that we were talking about, me and Poison Pen, since you're wearing a Laker hat.
Yeah.
We said the evolution of battle rap is similar to basketball in a sense, but reverse, because in the past, I remember, do you remember that year before the Bulls went on their run when Isaiah Thomas and the Pistons beat the shit out of Michael Jordan, and he came back all bulked up?
Yeah, I was very young, but I remember. Oh!
Look at it.
Oh! It's in the building. All right.
Oh, no, it's all good. All good.
It's all right. It's okay. Get mic'd up. We over.
But you remember, you could hack in the paint, you could beat the shit out of people. Now you cannot do that.
Right.
And the reversal is true in battle rap. In the past, you couldn't touch somebody. You couldn't be in their face. You couldn't spit on them or pocket. That was ridiculous. If you crossed the red line, you were done.
Right.
Right? And now it's almost moved to where those things have to be a part of it. You have to consider that in order to see if someone's going to try and use that to psychologically throw you off your game.
Right.
In other words, it's presented a new angle of focus that a person needs to have. It's no longer you just spitting your rap. Now I have to spit, juggle, memorize things, memorize the nuance, the emotion behind what has to be said, and deal with the clown who's trying to distract me. Doing everything that he can with physical attributes. And guess what? When it's his turn, I get to do it
the same thing.
And we'll find out whose mind is stronger. But it's interesting that, there's more regulations now in ball, but there's less regulations now
in battle
rap. You could do anything. I see people dunk on each other. I thought that was hilarious.
I gotta disagree. I started that, but I gotta disagree.
Why?
Because these things.
There's less regulation, you think?
No, what the things that you see on stage are definitely don'ts in the contract.
Right.
It's more of the fans have come to a point where they're kind of attracted to that type of stuff, and the battlers do it. And if it doesn't start a problem, it's cool.
But there are no consequences in the contract that have been enforced, have they?
No. So far, no.
Of course not. Because you can't take someone's pay away from that. And what I think is good about that is in this era of battle rap, everybody gets paid.
Right.
Hopefully.
Hopefully.
But this is what I'm saying. In the past, only the champion, only the person who stood among the 16-man bracket got paid. So 16 people were in the battle, right? And then after the first round, 8, and the second round, 4, the third round, 2 people, and the last was the champion. And only the champion got paid.
Wow.
That was an absurd structure.
Only one winner.
Right? Only one winner.
Right.
Nobody else wins. And guess what? There are no trophies and no cash prizes for second place.
Right.
Which was perfect for New York City. I think also the interesting thing that changed, and I touched on this on 15 Minutes of Fame, but we'll get into it here because I think we can get more in depth on that part.
Right.
In the past, when I was battling, and other people that I came up with were battling through that supernatural Eminem era, Juice and all them.
Right.
The point was to get on and get a deal and do music. And now the point is to take your creativeness and do anything with it.
Right.
And I'm not mad at that. It's just that people aren't tailoring it to go into a recording contract. It could be comedy, it could be writing, it could be, like the Wild and Out stuff. I think that's great that they're expanding that into a certain place. I just think the one thing that I see that I like, and I hope that continues, is that people still hold the culture dear to them, even though they're not doing exactly that. In other words,
right.
we're not hip. We're not doing hip hop cereal, right?
Right. That's not happening.
Play these games with me.
I don't think so. They're hip hop chips though. They're pretty good. The fabulous ones, fabulous ones are pretty good.
Them, so I don't know.
Yeah, but they're okay. Now you mentioned when you were battling.
A long time ago.
Can you tell us what that was like?
I played the part of professor in your hardest
semester. All right, you quoting I ain't sorry. In case you didn't know.
Yeah, I'm just taking it back to those days. It was literally you would go somewhere and show up, and that's what it was.
Right.
It wasn't hey, my manager is gonna call your manager. Then they'll call Smack or ARP and they'll book up a price. Right. And then we'll fight. Nah, nigga, I'm gonna show up on your block. If you're not there, I'll harass the people on your block. I'll tell them that you're scared of me.
Right.
And then when you show up, we'll start battling off the top of the head.
Right.
And that'll be it. And I think while that was cool for satisfying a person's ego,
right.
when you're freestyling, you're not gonna get nearly the same amount of bars that you will when a person is actually thinking and crafting, which is why I told people when they asked me, would you ever come back to battle? I said, listen, if a person who's even a legend didn't study and take some warm-up fights, anyone could get washed by a middling person, right? Anyone could get washed by a middle tier, even a low tier person that everyone thinks has that type of skill because you're working in a different format now, which is why I always say, and when I see people come back, we talked about the soul this thing, when I see people come back, I always tell them, please take a warm-up fight. Don't just jump back in a la Keith Thurman and you saw what, you know what I mean?
I try to warn them.
You gotta take a warm-up fight, or at least be on the block and have people attack you from left and right. Okay, get in the danger room.
Right.
But don't go from your fucking 14-hour shift job to think that you can hop back in the thing. It's not the same thing. The fastest swimmer in the world, that's great. You don't know how to play water polo, my dude. Yes, you can get up and down the court faster than anybody else, Jackie Joyner Kersey, but you cannot play basketball.
Right.
So what are you doing? You're gonna run down there and shoot a fucking air ball. Whereas another person is gonna make it slightly slower than you, but have the skills to fade three people and dunk. That's what I'm saying. And I think it's because if you talk about it and look at it that way, since there's no gatekeeper in hip hop, why would there be one in battle rap? You know what I mean? So anyone can just decide that they're gonna become part of it now, and now they're seen as legitimate or equatable with everybody else who's in the culture. Because essentially what you have to do is get a good writer to write for someone.
Right.
Whereas ghostwriting is acceptable. Now, no one cares, or who the fuck cares if he wrote the song? Is it hot? That's what people ask.
Yeah.
And the same thing is probably happening in battle rap now, where people always are gonna get some kind of
we still care to a certain extent, to where nobody's openly admitting
but everybody
that they
gets
have a
lines.
ghostwriter unless they get caught.
Everybody looks at somebody else, and you know what? If I could be totally honest, a person would have to be stupid to not bounce bars in a big match to say, hey man, is this hit hard enough? Or should I go even, is this even as personal as I should get? Is this too personal? Am I talking about this kid's dead kid? Like, is this too much? Like, are those conversations even had?
Look,
and I think that's the problem. Now, it's like anything is good. You could talk about anybody and their family and all that shit. I think that is something that honestly didn't exist in my era. And what's really funny is if the kids want to do research, there's a battle that happened between an MC named Presence and someone else, and it was the first episode that I seen them really confront what racism was, because this battle, it was, where was it? It was at a venue called the Bumbershoot, I think, in Seattle, and it was basically like he went off and made all these like these references, and they were super racist about Asian people. And then someone else came back and made references about black people in the battle. And I saw it, and the audience rejected it at that time. And it's funny to see the contrast now, because racism is something that's not seen as taboo in a battle. Whereas in the freestyle era, I remember there were people that, you know, got up on stage, and I remember Mobb Deep was hosting a Blaze battle event. And a girl told
Shout out
someone
to Blaze
else,
battles.
Right. They said,
Yeah.
yo, I'll tar and feather you like the KKK. And it was just a freestyle. But then people were like, there's a white MC that said that to a black MC. And it was like, people started booing this person. And people knew who that person was. And they weren't like a Nazi. They just said some stupid shit. But it was like, nah, you're a rap. Whereas now, it's like, dude, I've heard the worst things, you know what I mean, out of somebody. It's not even somebody saying the N-word. You don't even have to say that. I've heard people say some extremely racist things in battle, and it's just seen as whatever. It's just another punch to throw. So that's another interesting difference.
Well, I don't think that it's ever been racist to the point where you can get away with saying something like that. Like, we had a white battle rapper who decided to use the N-word, and he immediately got punched in the face.
Well, he
for
called
it.
a love tap. Let's not say he got punched in the face.
Yeah, it was a love tap. But I was happy about it. It's like, good.
He got smacked in the mouth.
Yeah.
I remember that.
So basically, there's still people that's not going to go for that, and I don't think that that should ever be acceptable. But I get what you're saying.
There's a dude that does magic tricks on YouTube now, and in the past, I saw the video of him mixing it up with somebody. Where was it? In Baltimore, and he said had this entire diatribe about how, like, literally probably one of the most racist battles I've seen. But it was interesting because they were definitely going back and forth saying things on both ends. The other person was saying things about him being white and Jewish, and you know, I don't know if they brought up the Holocaust, but it was just like, damn, they went in on each other. But I thought what was interesting is, yeah, there are physical consequences, because I remind people, free speech isn't free. Right? There are some things that are honestly not covered by free speech.
Right.
You can't slander or libel somebody that's not covered by free speech. If I say she's a murderer, she sues me. No, what, are you kidding me? You're ruining my business. Now, if I prove that you cost me a job by spreading lies about me, I can take your whole check.
Right.
There's some other things that you can't yell fire in a crowded place. Also, here's another thing. Forget legal. You could say whatever you want, right? No one's gonna drag you to jail for that. But somebody really may punch you in the fucking mouth because they don't have that type of patience to hear that type of crap. It really does depend on where you're in. I think that on a big stage, like, for example, Smack, we've seen plenty of brawls. You know what I mean? You yourself have been part of them at some point. And I think at your age, looking back on it, if you were the league owner, you know what I mean? What would have to be done to say,
this can't happen?
No, not just that. We're avoiding a problem that has never happened in battle rap, or to my knowledge, which is, you remember the Drake and Chris Brown fight at the 40-40?
Right.
They didn't sue each other. Somebody who got hurt in the club, who got their retina slashed with a piece of glass.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing that the battle rap community hasn't dealt with. Smack or RBE or the rest of them, KOTD, to my knowledge, didn't get someone that says, oh, you know what? No, I got a permanent injury from being in one of these stupid brawls. I'm suing you for $2 million. I got a fucking monster attorney. Fuck this. That's the thing that's really probably gonna wake people up. And I hope it doesn't get to that. But I'm saying, you as a person who's been in the mix for that, what's the solution to, what is, in other words, it answers Swave Sever's question too. What is the restore order move from a person who's been personally involved on all ends of this and been in the mix?
I think that there is no resolution to something like that. Well, not resolution, but there's no preemptive trying to figure out how to make this not happen, because just like any other sport, and we do look at battle rap as a sport now, tensions get high, people's emotions are involved.
Okay.
Like, that's like saying, what are we gonna do? Somebody two-piece this basketball player.
Right.
How do we stop this? You can't stop it
to stop
because
physical
humans
fights
are
on
involved.
But there are consequences.
There are
for touching a player.
consequences,
Remember we
right.
talked about how the league
I
was
got banned
in the 90s. Remember how we talked about
Right.
how the league was in the 90s? You could hack in the paint, no fouls. Now, flagrant. You're out the fucking game.
Right.
So I get it. You're right, those. But one other thing that I thought about now that we're just talking about it is, in the era that you mostly battled in, I noticed something that was never around in our era: security. security in the club in the 90s was bullshit. Them niggas was getting high outside. They didn't give a fuck.
Right.
Nowadays, I actually do once in a while see a security guard on stage. Or somebody else. In your expert opinion, is that window dressing or does that actually prevent it? Like, is there someone that's, or is that someone that just deterrent by looking
the
at it
initiation
like,
of it?
I'm
No,
get the cops
that's not going to
over me?
prevent it. Will it stop it from getting worse? Yes.
Okay.
But you got to remember, I got banned for about 3.5 years.
Right.
So if that wasn't a lesson to anybody, then I don't know what to say.
But it wasn't because people still had fights afterwards, plenty of them.
And it all depends on where you fight at.
But all these situations are around specific key elements that make you say, well, yeah, this was gonna happen. If we look at the Murder Mook situation, okay, his mother just passed, opening bars, your mother's bitch. Okay, emotionally, he kept it together.
But he didn't do anything until the person
He didn't do
touched
anything,
him.
right. So now you compound that with, now I'm touching you while you're rapping.
Which is supposed
gonna
to be
happen.
okay anyway.
No, it's not supposed to.
No, is the pocket taps and all that? That's
No.
not supposed to be
If
okay?
I'm rapping,
Oh, okay. He grabbed
why
his
are you
neck or
touching
something,
me? Yeah, like he's bumping him and doing stuff to him. Like, that's not supposed to happen.
Yeah, it's some crossing the line stuff that
I feel
happens.
like the only way to
all the
stop
time.
it is to tap their to take from their pay. That's it. It's like if you do it once and you're hard on it, like if you do this, if you breach the contract, then you won't get paid and stick to it, then people will start realizing, well, damn, I'm not gonna get paid. But since the habit of, oh, like I got into a fight, I still got paid.
Right.
I touched him, I still got paid. Since that trend is running, then no one's ever really gonna feel like it's gonna hurt
But
them.
at the
See,
same
it's
time,
interesting.
nobody comes back and says,
Right.
oh, I did it once. Oh, time to do it again.
No, but
Next battle, I'm doing a roundhouse.
But she brings up
not
an
happening.
interesting point. In boxing, you could throw low blows. They'll deduct
The
the point.
point.
But if you get disqualified from the match, you forfeit your purse. If you throw enough low blows,
Yeah.
or if you rabbit punching, or you shoving, or you biting a nigga's ear,
Right.
you get disqualified. When you get disqualified, your purse is forfeit. You could lose the fight. You could get
Right.
knocked out the ring. Everything. You still get paid.
Well, to be honest, I think
Lose the
people
purse.
only do it enough to generate some sort of attention. Like if you look at Cassidy and Arsenal. Arsenal does this in the first round.
Or blowing
Grabs him
smoke
by
in
the
people's
shirt.
face.
Oh, he shook him too.
Grabs him by the shirt.
Yeah, I saw it.
Okay, no, none of that.
That was absurd.
Doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah, it could have
but
went.
it happened.
It could have went out of hand too. It could have got Cass could have swung on him. The
Yeah,
whole
and they
thing could
had
have got
their
shut down.
entourages with them.
Yeah,
It
it
could've
could've
got
got
real
real
I think
crazy.
you just got to be prepared for the consequences if you're the type of person to walk into a battle and say, I'm going to do this,
I'm gonna cross the line.
purposely.
Yeah.
I'm
I'ma call your bluff.
I'm going to...
Whatever.
So back to the original point. Let's say a fan goes there with their girl or something, or some people, they get hurt in a melee. Do they have the right to sue, right? Who are they suing?
The league,
The league? Not the,
the
battler.
building,
The league.
Battler,
everything.
the league,
Yeah,
Right.
you can sue the building.
So here's a
everything.
question I have. What is the league's position on insurance? These people have to have something, right? Or are they really tightrope walking out here? Do y'all really not have insurance? Like, you
No,
know what's funny? As a
there-
performer,
there's definitely
I have to
insurance.
buy insurance
Right.
to be on it. What type of insurance is there on that? That has to be some.
I think you would have to ask the league owner.
You
But
know
I'm
what?
pretty sure
next
it
time they have
exists.
a league owner on here, ask them about the nuts and bolts of how this shit runs. What kind of insurance do these people have to pay to get motherfuckers in the building like that? Because
Right.
God forbid somebody get hurt on the real shit. That's not what we want to see. We
Yeah.
want to
It's
see
not-
somebody
it's not
get
what we
their
wanna
feelings
see.
hurt. That's what we heard.
But let's not act like, oh, we're so holy. We don't want anybody to touch each other. The fans like this shit.
Everybody
That's why
loves a
it's
mosh pit
happening
until
so
your daughter's
frequently
in it.
now.
That's my point.
Yeah.
It'd be one thing, but you're talking as a person who went to see, who watches the battle rap, who's been in the mix, who knows a lot about the streets. Imagine a parent looking at it. Like I sent my 19-year-old child to a hip hop event. Not a fucking slam dance party, not a brawl.
Right.
This shit broke out. And mind you, people don't stop being your father once you turn 18.
That's cool.
You know what I mean? Or your mother. So when you 27, 28, you end up in a fucking hospital. Who got to go see you?
Well, that
What you
depends
gonna
on-
tell them?
that-
Oh, battle, I did it for the culture. Yo, make sure the culture pay the bills. Nah, they gonna say, no, nigga, you gonna pay them bills, man.
Okay, when Metal World Peace was running around punching fans in the mouth, those parents didn't feel like, oh, we went to a basketball game. I didn't know this was gonna happen.
Those were bad parents. They were like 50 years old. Those were the parents starting to fight. That's the fucked up part. When the parents are starting to fight, then it's not even the kids no more. You can't. Then there's no adult in the room.
Right.
That's my thing. So in this sense, in battle rap, who is the adult in the room?
I think we all are to a certain extent. And it's just got to be like that, just like the NBA, just like the NFL, just like hockey. It is what it is. Now, we don't expect these things to happen.
They all have consequences for their actions in all those sports. So that legit would be the only way.
So, but is it that different from your era?
I think the thing is this. I love what I see kids do now, right? To come up with creative angles, to think your opponent apart. I honestly think it's more exciting to hear the content of that than off the top the head bars that are just thrown together that you may get a few punchlines that hit.
Right.
So I appreciate. Also, you got to understand. I have a lot of respect for the fact that people, because having this conversation with someone else, I think we came up with an actual number on it. We said in common time, in 4/4 time, right? You get about 24 bars in a minute. So if you got 3-minute rounds, it's 72 bars.
Right. Which
means you writing 3-minute rounds, which is 216 bars. That's a lot of bars just for somebody, right?
It's the equivalency of an album.
Right. I'd say like 6-7 songs, an EP, let's say.
Depending. Okay, let's say you got 5-minute rounds.
All right.
That's the whole album.
Hey, listen, and the unlimited stuff is ridiculous.
That's the whole album. Yes.
But at the same time, you're writing a lot of material.
Right.
And I'm thinking anyone who can do that and also improvise on that, that's a totally separate skill than just freestyling, than just being able to come up with comparisons and you look like and mom jokes and stuff. So I think there's a more in-depth ability to tear someone's character apart.
It's advanced.
You could really get into somebody.
Right.
And I think that's been what has caused a little bit more of the fights. I don't think as many fights were started in my era by what people said, but if people cross the line.
Yeah, people doing homework on people now and really finding things about you.
Okay, but that's always existed.
It's always existed, and I say that to lead into I've heard stories and I've seen some of your battles, and personally, you did find ways to attack each person like in a different way.
Sure.
What do you think was the worst thing you ever said to someone where you felt like, yeah, I really hurt him with that?
You really want me to be honest?
Yes, I want you to be honest, yes.
Somebody made fun of my girl, and I went in on their girl. But they happened to be at the show.
Right.
And they were in the front row.
Yeah.
And I obliterated this person.
What did you say?
I'm not going to repeat that now.
What do you mean you're not going to repeat?
I teach in a prison. Listen, what I was going to say. What I was going to say. I'll tell you what.
This is your past.
I'll tell you something.
This is your past.
No, it wasn't the baddest. It was just the fact that it was so mean and cruel because the person was right there.
Yeah.
And I just kept going. I didn't even battle the person anymore. I was just tearing this girl up, and I was like, "You see, you can do nothing to protect her." And I was just ripping them up. And then I'll tell you, the reason I think this is the worst thing I've done is that I think you don't just judge things by what you think the worst thing is done.
Right.
It's by the impact that you've had on people.
Right.
Like let's say
so what was the impact?
Let's say you got into five really big fights in high school you can remember, and you rocked everybody, and all of them forgive you except one person is like, fuck her. Fuck her to this day.
Right.
You know you did something extra to her that maybe you don't even think you did to somebody else.
Yeah.
Like maybe you kicked them in the face when it was all done, and that was what pulled them over. So this person, I seen them recently, and they were still mad at me.
Damn.
Still. I was on tour, and they try to put their finger in my ear, like, you asshole. And I was like, I grabbed their finger. I was like, yo, calm down. I was like, are you okay? And she's like, I'm not gonna forgive you for what you did. And I'm like, you're not even with that person anymore. You married somebody else.
Right.
And you're still mad about it, and that's still impacting your life. And that person that I battled has moved on.
Did you
have a family. They have, and I have no problem with them.
Right.
But an innocent bystander to the crime is still mad about
Did you pat yourself on the back for that?
No.
No?
Because I don't think that's an achievement. I haven't built anything. I've just torn
Imagine
something
if she
down.
had
We'll talk when the camera's
insecurity
off.
Problems.
No.
Tore her up.
Depressed.
No.
And she just killed herself.
I think the thing that
Imagine
I
that.
think that I was very tit for tat in that era. So I feel like I only had to work off what people gave me as well. That's another thing. You know, all you had to work off. Of sure, everybody, anyone from that era, whether they're Ilmac, Thesaurus, myself, Poison Pen, they're lying if they say they didn't see a bunch of opponents come on and think, okay, I got an emergency line or I know what to say about this. Sure, I've seen people backstage mumbling to themselves at Scribble Jam. That's not fake. That's just the game. That's just real. That's just warming up. Fucking I seen Idea freestyling to himself behind the fucking stage before he went on. So I'm like, yeah, I get it. You gotta warm up. You gotta do certain things.
Right.
That's not cheating to me. That's just part of it. One thing that I think is like super interesting that I see is the ownership now is in question, right? There was a battle rapper who took the bars that he had done, right, on all of his battles and then put them on a mixtape. You know, similar to other battle rappers, people who have success in that, have taken some of their bars from this battle or that and then just throw it in there. But he took pretty much all of his bars that he had battled other people and said, I'm gonna restructure them into music. And my question now is, and something I push to the battle rappers, and I wanna definitely leave it at the foot of this community as well, who has the ownership of that, right? Who would they pay the royalties to? It certainly wouldn't be the battler, would it? Even though he's entitled to those royalties, because it's his composition. But technically, didn't he sign away the right to those battles? For example, when he signed it to that company, to YouTube, they have in other words, they've licensed the master from him for an unspecified period of time.
Right.
Which means technically, like, I'll give you an example. NBC came to me one day, they called me on the phone. And they said, hey, we filmed the pilot. And they didn't even use my music, Hoffa, but they spit a line in the dialogue from one of my songs.
Right.
And they know what they did. So they called me on the phone, said, how can we fix this? And I said, give me a price. They gave me a price, and they sent it to me. If they picked a punchline that you or Hollow or Lux or somebody said, and they wanted to put it in a movie, who would they pay? Would they pay you? And also, if they're paying you, does the platform get a cut? Or do you get a cut of what the platform gets?
I think we're getting into a conversation that we've been having since, I'd say, Summer Madness 1.
Right.
On the intellectual property. Like, who owns what we actually write? Once we spit it in a battle, does it go? And that depends on your contract. And I think a lot of battle rappers should be reading their contracts to find out like what it is. But to that extent, I don't think, even if it was signed over, I don't think there's many leagues that would be like dickish to go after you if you used it in a song. You know what I'm saying? But I get what you're saying as far as having a business straight and figuring that out. Because if that's the case, then that means we are owed a royalty to every time this battle makes money off advertisement or whatever streaming source it's on, where they
But that's not the case, though.
Where people pay for it, right?
Should be getting
But this has been a conversation behind closed doors between certain battle rappers. Not every battle rapper thinks about this, but a lot of us have been like, yo, how do we work this out where these battles are online forever?
Forever.
We don't know where this whole thing is going.
Wait, not just forever, but pretty soon they'll be in the Library of Congress. They'll be in colleges. They'll be in schools. And the only reason I bring this up is because you have the ear of a community that I am only loosely associated with. Not to say, I know damn near everybody in there.
Right.
But you could bring the point home to them even more to say, hey man, do you realize that in the future, people, you're a part of history. Like you don't recognize this is the late republic of the American Empire, and you're sitting here and you're talking about everything that's going on. People are gonna look through history at your battles to see what the mood was of the climate or what society was like. And if you control that, then man, the university has to pay you to do the curriculum, not somebody else who owns it because of that. And I bring this up because I heard a rumor about Grind Time's catalog being sold for pennies. Who owns those battles now, right? And if they do get put out, I guarantee you, because I've already talked to a few battlers that are on there, they're saying they're gonna sue. They're saying, no, fuck that. And I wasn't consulted about this. I don't know what the language on those contracts are. Now, everyone automatically thinks, oh, that's some white people shit to sue.
No.
Fuck out of here. No, that's some hood shit that we've been missing. We could be getting money from legitimate sources. This isn't being a grifter. This isn't G-ing people.
Right.
This is legitimately something you worked on that then you get no revenue from, and where's the fairness in that? That's not even legal in other businesses.
I think what it is people have this perception that we are so against the system because the system is against us that we refuse to even use it in our favor.
Well,
And that's
I
kinda
just
whack.
think a lot of rappers are unaware. You understand? But that's why platforms like this and speaking to you, bringing light to that, and the more we constantly speak about it, it kind of opens their eyes to other things. Because even when I talk to battle rappers about things, things like that, contracts, what does it entail, what royalties and things like that, it's not even something that they even thinking about
Right.
because all they want to do is be seen.
In a way,
One of their jokes
wait.
ends up in a movie.
Wait.
It's worth
Hold on.
$50,000.
But was Kool Moe D thinking about that when was LL Cool J sitting around saying like what's gonna happen 50 years from now? You know what I'm saying? Like it's kind of like where battle rap is. We're in that space where this thing is so new, people don't really understand what it means.
And that's the difference, I think, between the way that you saw companies interact with, for example, Run DMC when the culture was new. They made a song called My Adidas, and then they got paid $50,000 or $100,000 afterwards. Whereas you have the evolution of that, where Jay came and said, "Hey, I'll put your name in here, but I need you to break bread first,
Right.
because I could put someone else's name in here."
That's
and
a
then
fact.
Come and say, "Pay me first for what I'm doing as opposed to this." So you're right. There should be definitely some looking into the contract, but also an understanding of there got to be a time limit for all these things to revert back to the artists themselves, right? Like, if this is what you're doing as a career, as a young person, everyone gets a pension. The pension comes from all the views and the history and you having some ownership. I'm not saying if you got paid and they paying you for everything. Like I remind people, the industry is grimy because people don't pay attention to what's being paid for. Like I know people who are managers and they'll say, how can someone be someone's manager and take 40 or 50%? And I say, well, hold on. If someone's paying for the studio time, they paying for the beats, they paying for everything, they giving you a stipend to live, they paying your rent, then obviously they made it possible for you to be able to do
the percentages go up with responsibilities.
Right. If you want nothing from them, if you want nothing from a label, if you write a book, kids, and you don't take no upfront, it's just like the Rap Game. You don't take no upfront money, you can make $4 or $5 a book. But if you take the upfront money, you're gonna get 60 cents a book, and that's it. It doesn't matter what it is. Whatever you don't take upfront, which is the real question, what if battle rappers said, I don't want any money up front.
Oh man,
I want ownership of this. I want a percentage of the company. I want pieces of the. I want a piece of the
There's
the
some
pay per
battle
view.
rappers, very few, but some of them have
pieces of the pay per view.
situations like
Right.
that. I know. I think Hollow does.
But on a grand.
But those are only the big dogs.
On a grand scale, they're not thinking about that.
Yeah, most people not. Most battlers not. Everybody just wants to perform and be seen.
But they got to think about their retirement.
A lot of battle rappers are addicted to that first half. That deposit.
Yeah. So if anything, then the league owners own everything then.
Well, I mean, hey, I think someone.
They own all that intellectual property.
I think you're absolutely right. Yeah, according to the contract.
Yeah, if I'm a league owner and I pay you for a
Here
battle.
you go coming through trying to start a battle rap revolution.
Wait. There are three things: the masters, the publishing, and the sync license. That is the triple threat.
And if you own your image, that
So
falls
let me
into
ask you a
that
question:
shit.
if any of these leagues wanted to go to HBO and do this, and they wanted to put their back catalog on there, they would have to consult you, or could they do that without your?
It depends on what the contract was at the time.
Exactly. So then what we're doing is it has, in that sense, I guess it's similar to hip hop because there's no quote unquote industry standard.
Right.
When someone told you, oh, this is a standard deal, that's bullshit.
No,
There's
there's an
it's whatever
industry
you can
standard.
get.
There's an industry standard, but it's ignorant to all those things.
Right.
So
Then it's just
that's
the
where
big
we're at
dogs
with
being
it.
able to cut whatever deal they can
Right.
because of the supply and demand for their name.
Right.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Y'all just get paid to perform.
So-
and then
so-
once you perform, the owner, like the league owner, owns
Like looking back.
the footage.
Dude,
There's
I do
footage
shows
of your
all the
battles.
time. Yeah,
There's
but I do shows all the time. Here's the thing. I get paid for all that, right?
Mm-hmm.
If someone took a video of my show and then sold it, I'd get paid all that. They wouldn't make no goddamn money off that. If I'd release a song, right, since I own all three, I don't go chasing publishing anymore on the internet. In other words, I don't call people up and report SoundCloud rapper, this one, you stole my beat.
Right.
No, the money will come to me. I just say, this is where it is, look at this, boom.
You have a
And
network
they'll
that
look
works
at it,
for you.
And they say, all right, yeah, this is your music. They take it and they automatically credit to me.
Right.
And then they have to remove it from this person's on the next statement, on the next quarterly.
But
it's already fixed.
So
that way.
so here's a question.
So how is it going to be fixed here?
Obviously, we got to sit down and we got to formulate new contracts, or the battle rappers who are able to get those type of situations. Because I think in a lot of situations, a battle rapper will say that, and the league owner be like, "Nah, I'm not doing that."
Well, how about this? What if guys like you and the other dudes that occupy the top tier positions led the way for other people?
The
and said,
wheels are already turning.
and
my
say, hey,
friend.
brother,
The wheels
that's why
are
we're
already
here.
turning, my
And
friend.
say, hey, man, you know,
Yeah.
in the future, when we all get to be 50, 60 years old, we would like to own the shit that we do. Like, I get it. The longest term contracts that music has is for 20 years.
Right.
But if that's the case, then that would mean that the battles that took place in 2006 were going to revert to you guys in fucking 6 years. Which means that anything going on further from that, of course, listen, I'm not
Every
saying that
year
the
it's
leagues,
gonna-
I'm not saying, listen, I don't hate leagues, don't get it wrong.
No,
I'm not
no,
saying
not
the
at
leagues
all,
don't
not
deserve
at
their
all.
cut. They put up the platform, they put up the price. Sure, should they get a percentage? Yes. Should they be able to dictate the percentage across the board? No. But at the same time, they have to have some involvement because they facilitated everything, right? And at first, I remind people, Poison Pen was the first one to do pay-per-view battle rap. Everyone thought that was bullshit. They were
Right.
like, oh yeah, no. What do you mean? Who's gonna tune in for this? And it was like, nah. Now that's the moneymaker. It's like having a club with
It's the
no
norm.
bar. You
Yeah,
can't
right.
have an
Yeah,
event
it's the
without
norm.
a pay-per-view.
Right.
That's gonna pay for the rest of the overhead.
Facts.
So it's like, well, we've already having conversations, and I think she brought it up that there are definitely people that when they have the power, they get a cut of the pay-per-view.
Yeah, I know
Right.
some
Right.
people that get the pay-per-view,
So it's like, what about the back end now? That's
Right.
where the real money
like
is.
3%.
So here's my question: Is it the battlers like you in the beginning, the Scribble Jam footage,
I don't know
nothing?
Listen, dude, I'll put it this way. It's so fucked up that it's similar to you guys in the sense that the most successful ones of us in the underground, no one would think of putting that out without calling me.
Right.
Because they'll get sued.
Right.
But the other people, they'll do it too and they'll put it on the website or whatever. And it's like, I get it. If you're selling a product, then you know you gotta break bread. If it shows up on YouTube or some other site, I can't control that. Then it's just whatever, you know.
Right.
Again, let me also say something just for the camera. I was a person that encouraged people to download my music for free because I was always of the mind that the message was important to me, and if people wanted to support me, they would anyway. And that's actually been incredibly successful. People that downloaded the record for free said to themselves, you know what? I liked it. He was saying download it for free, and he said if I liked it, I should buy it for someone I love.
Right.
Cool. So it's a number one gift every fucking year.
Yeah.
Every Christmas we get a bump in the fucking thing. But I tell people, hey man, just steal it
It
offline.
is what it is, yeah.
Right. But when it comes to my artwork and corporations doing that and meticulously making millions of dollars on it, like in other words, I say that to fans, but it's obviously a different attitude if I caught somebody like in a plant,
Actually making money off of it.
them and being
Yeah.
like, yeah, here we go.
Yeah.
Right.
Like T-shirts outside a concert.
See, that is a lie, though. You know what I'm saying? Thank you for bringing that up. This is another fucked up thing that's wrong with rap and battle rap. I was on 257 stations, right, that carried the news of my arrest. Only 4 of them carried the news of my exoneration. My total thing. Like,
Wow.
dude, I hired 4 lawyers. Mind you, 4 lawyers. I had a Jewish lawyer, a Swedish lawyer, and 2 Cuban lawyers. It was like a fucking United Nations. Whenever I went to court, I stood up and said, Mr. Coronel, is your team ready? We all stood up. We all went up there. And let me tell you something. I'll bring the police report next time I'll come in here.
Right.
It says the most absurd shit. It says at the end, no injuries reported. So the police report in the beginning says Immortal technique and a dozen assailants mercilessly beat down.
Mercilessly.
No injuries reported. So how did I mercilessly beat?
If
But you know,
no
I can't
injuries
say
were
that
reported.
in court. When the case was going on, I couldn't say, well, if I had really wanted to fuck these niggas up, then something else happened.
Right.
We got a phone call from an investigator. Because remember, once the police have who they have and have their eye on someone, they're not going to do any investigative work. So I hired my own investigator, who was an ex-cop, who went out there, who ran the jacket of everyone who was involved and said, wait a minute, this person pulled a slip and fall in front of Bloomingdale's. This person is a grifter. This is a liar. Another person who was involved in the case, my lawyer called me nervous. He was like, hey man, do you know that a person who was connected to the case was murdered? And I was like, what? He was like, yeah, there was a murder in TJ, and it looked like a drug deal going bad. And I was like, yo, man, I ain't kill nobody.
Yeah.
Fucking shit. I
With some
didn't even
t-shirts.
smack this nigga. What the fuck are you think I'm gonna shoot somebody? I didn't hit nobody. I shouldn't even be in jail, right? So, but again, it turned out to have nothing to do with me, again, and the people said this is nonsense. Of course it is. And then these trumped up charges, they just wanted money out of all this. They wanted me to go there, have court dates, 11 court dates separately, until they finally said no.
Now, we know what this is about. The people don't know what this is about.
Right. So maybe roughly about 4 years ago,
Right.
I was arrested and charged with robbery and assault. And basically, it was really interesting because at the time, I was in the middle of a very successful tour, one of the best ones, totally sold out tour.
Right.
And I think that what affected it is that I saw the way that criminality and having a case affects the people around you.
Right.
In other words, without naming names, there are people that were in business with me that distanced themselves from me.
Of course.
And that really bothered me because I was like, man, these people that, you know what I mean, that never had me up in their home. And you start to put it two together. Like, were we really always friends, or was it just business then? And that really hurt me because it was like, you know, if I can be honest here as a man and say, you know, it kind of hurts when you know somebody for so long and it's like, well, wait a minute. Now when I'm on trial, right? Now you choose this time to step away from me.
Right.
Now you choose this time to turn your back on me. And
Right.
you do realize that that these people will offer me no plea agreements because they thought they had me by the motherfucking balls. They were like, no, we'll give you 9 months.
Again, but what were you accused of?
Robbery and assault
And this is
in
from
Santa Ana, California.
and the situation was
Not the first incident too. Right. About 2 years earlier, I did an event with people who were undocumented there, and they were workers, and they were city workers, and they were unionized, and this whole thing. And then we were talking about the murders that had taken place in the desert, and how law enforcement knew about the human trafficking, and that they were getting cuts from it, all this stuff.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, outside, they claimed my car was involved in a hit and run, and they towed my car. I went there with my attorney the next morning, just to make sure, because I show up now with the lawyer. I don't show up with goons. What the fuck are they gonna do?
Right.
Fuck the cops up? No. But when I show up with the attorney, my client needs to know why his car was impounded. We need probable cause. We need the video of why this happened.
right.
What happened? I'm sorry, it was a case of mistaken identity, Mr. Cornell. It turned out not to be a car. Unfortunately, we can't waive the towing fee, so we'll have to charge you the $300 for holding your car in the impound overnight. But there will be no formal charges. Have a nice day. This isn't my first rodeo with Santa Ana. I know how they are. They're one of the most conservative counties in America.
Right.
So me going there and talking about this, me being involved down there with the people who, and I keep it real, it wasn't, this is, everyone who rolls with me is down with this type of shit, even if they not from the same community.
Right.
So take a Poison Pen. He walked through the desert of fucking Arizona with me
Right.
to leave water for migrant families that were rushing and hiding.
Right.
And the person who was also loosely associated, but he was in the Arizona side, not the Border Angels, which is the people we were working with, those individuals, they beat a case for that type of shit. So in my mind, I'm thinking, y'all charging me for this bullshit? Like, I know what you're doing. You're ignoring the activist work that I do.
Right.
And you're coming after me for some trumped up charges to make it look like I'm a criminal, like I'm a bad person. When you know that I teach in a prison, you know that I'm not a person out here starting random fights in the street. You know me from the battle scene. I'm always a person that advocates for conversation rather than confrontation first, because I don't want to see too many people kill each other. I'm a person who is incredibly vocal, especially on the West Coast, about not promoting anti-blackness in the Latino community, because they want us to kill each other out there. That's their fucking plan, and now they make it plain and clear. And that's not the future I envision for myself. I know people across the board in the activist community out there, because the racial relations are very different on the West Coast than out here. And I'm committed to that. So to not highlight those things and to slander me like I'm a thief in the night, like I need $100 from someone. No, come on, bro.
But this is over T-shirts?
Allegedly, yeah.
Allegedly.
This is what this was about. We don't know what the case, which is why I remind people when you get in the public light, do not randomly think that there are no consequences even for the smallest thing. My attorney told me at the end, he goes, listen, I know you didn't have anything to do with this, but you can't even be near this type of stuff anymore. And he's like, I'll tell you a personal story from the head of the firm. The head of the firm has one client. He's a freaking billionaire. You know what I mean? He was hooked up with Bill Gates and Microsoft and all this. The guy's a billionaire. He's obviously not the richest guy, but he's got a few $1 billion.
Right.
Him and his wife are somewhere, and they're on a bike, like those little 12 speeds. And he accidentally comes near like a bunch of people waiting for coffee at some little stand, and he touches his foot with the bike. And the guy turns around and goes, I'm really sorry, you okay? And he says, yeah, I'm fine. He goes, no, are you okay? Like, I know I didn't hit your foot. You want new sneakers? I'll wipe your shoes. Like, just laughing and joking. Yeah. The guy's like, no, I'm fine, no problem.
Next day.
10 days later, they find out this nigga's worth millions. They want like $7 million. They sued this guy for $7 million, saying pain and suffering, you broke my foot. There's a hairline fracture. There was no hairline fracture, dude. It was all a fraud. But they had to pay money to go find this stuff. So the guy says to me, he goes, Mr. Cornell, you can't do this anymore. I'm sorry. And I think it gets to the point where everyone has a measure of success where you realize that you're risking more by doing that. Now, mind you, I grew up in Harlem. Right? I learned to fight in Harlem.
West
Not
side?
from ran people from the
West
street.
side?
No, from the West Side. And my master was Stanley Thompson, a former Marine, a black Vietnam veteran, definitely had been through a lot of crazy things. And one of the things I remember he told me is, look, would you ever jump in a car that was about to go off a cliff, right? Just to slice someone's face or to punch them in the nose? No, because you'd be killing yourself. And he goes, what do you think you're doing every time you're fighting out here in the street with these people? However, there's another side to that, he told me. And it's not the one that your parents and your guidance counselor, your teacher want to hear. He said, in life, you're going to find someone like that. They may not have hurt you, but they hurt someone you love. They did some terrible things. And you're going to want to get in that car and you want to rip their fucking eye out or stab them in the heart and say, take this fucking with you for what you fucking did to my family or me. Just remember, he said to me, every time you get in that car, you lower your chances exponentially from coming back. So the first time, it's a 50-50 chance.
Right.
The second time, you're playing 75-25. And the third time, you have less than a 15% chance to make it back to your family. And now you have to ask yourself what's worth more to you. Revenge of the people you love. And that's the real lessons you learn.
Yo, that sounded like an ill-ass movie.
It definitely did. Nah,
that sounded like, yo, like,
but you realize,
do I get him or do I don't get him? Like,
you
know what I mean?
This is the art of war, which I think is also interesting because I know, you know what I think is really interesting? A lot of MMA fighters and boxers watch battle rap. A lot of athletes watch battle rap. And at the same time,
a lot of soldiers watch battle rap also.
I asked them, I asked every fighter that I ever met, who taught you the art of war, right? Who taught you that a wounded enemy is more dangerous than a man who's healthy sometimes? Like, who taught you how to respect people's weaknesses? Who taught you that you don't defeat a man by exploiting the weaknesses? You defeat someone by turning the strengths into
against
weaknesses.
him, yeah.
So who teaches you the art of war? I think it's interesting because it's not just who taught you how to rap on stage as a battle rapper. I would be interested in seeing who was a person's swag mentor. Like, who taught you the self-confidence, in other words, that you need to be on stage? Where did you get that from? Not just the bars, but who taught you? I don't wet this person at all. I solidified my spot with
gorillas.
Who were the gorillas that said to you, I'm going to teach you how how to solidify your spot. Because essentially what you're saying, I solidified I can stand here and you can't move me. Not by intimidation, not by your words. I'm not moved by your words figuratively.
Right.
I'm not moved by nothing you're gonna do like physically.
Right.
Someone taught you. Who was that person in your life? Or who were those people in your life?
Wow. If I it would be a list of people.
Name one.
There's a brother from my neighborhood named Will, a brother named JB, Troy Ave, not Troy Ave the rapper, but Troy Ave the crew. They were from our hood and they moved a certain way. Biggie, Tupac, 50 Cent. You know, like you just pick things up along the way. It's never just one person unless that person is just a stable in your life, like your father, your uncle, or someone who's gonna be around. You kind of pick up pieces from everything that you see. And there were just multiple pieces.
Because the one thing that I always remind people that say, oh, battling is whatever, anyone can get it. I remind people, one thing that I think is really overlooked, and you know this for sure, it takes a lot of self-confidence to get up there. And for someone who's used to having self-confidence, you don't realize how terrifying that is to the majority of people that are actually watching this. The majority of people
now the
would
thing
be
is,
dumbfounded in a room full of like 800 people booing you, screaming at you. Like, I remind people, it's like being the opening act. Right. I've been the opening act for Wu-Tang when they're like 2 hours late. Right. I've been the opening act for Rakim when he's an hour and a half. They don't want to fucking hear you. Right? Yeah. And as a battle rapper, if you're not the upper card of people, sometimes it's been 4 hours since the battle. They don't want to fucking hear. But you have to have the self-confidence to walk into a room full of people that don't want to fucking hear shit.
Now here's a question.
Make them listen.
Fit, are you nervous before a battle? Me too. It's there.
Right.
We just get better at not showing it.
I think
that's it.
I don't really get confidence more so from like people per se. I think I feed a lot off of the fans, right? And like the energy that I'm getting.
Yeah.
Right. I think I feel confident when I'm preparing for it. When I know I got something good, right?
Yeah.
But I think the confidence comes more from people reassuring me that they're good. So that's why I feel like during a battle, you can even see it progresses. It just supercharges.
Right.
And when I said something good and I know it's good, I'm
And they
just
go,
like, and I
It's
just
like-
start doing things. Like,
It's like you start to get
you
bigger.
know what I mean? Like,
You know
I
what I mean?
freaking flicked my hair in one battle and I'm like,
I don't flip
where did
my
that
hair.
come from? It just came from like, like
Styling on it.
I feel
In the zone.
more stylish. For that 1 second, my hair felt like it flowed perfectly. like I felt like my skin was glowing a certain way. So I really feel like, that energy that I get from the crowd, it really matters, right? Because when they don't react, then you're like, okay, wait.
Yeah.
But
My hair doesn't flow, and I don't think I've ever felt like my skin is glowing.
It's funny
but I feel like the biggest person in the room.
You bring that up. I feel like I was watching. I don't know. I don't remember if it was Sports Center or ESPN. But you reminded me of something that I think Jalen Rose said. He goes, what's the greatest advantage that you have? And he's like, what is home court advantage? And he's like, that's like 80%.
Yeah.
He goes, you don't know what it means to have 60,000 people screaming, go, yeah, we got you.
That's
And it's
crazy.
like, so if that's a microcosm of it, you got a section of people that just believe in you.
Yes.
And then when the fans get you rolling, it builds with that.
Yeah,
So then losing momentum is the worst thing for a situation.
I always tell everybody, the worst sound to hear in battle rap is silence.
Yeah.
When you don't hear anything, it drives me crazy. Like my head is moving, my mind is just
You don't know
going
what's going
so
on.
fast.
Yeah.
And I'm just like,
You really
oh my
don't know
God,
what's going on.
I can't
Is it
believe
working?
Like, that's just a sign of.
You're like,
no.
why are they silent?
No.
And if you're thinking that while
can
you're
throw
trying
you
to
off.
remember your rhymes,
It's not good.
it's not gonna be a good show. But battle rap, we're still on battle rap. Scribble Jam,
Rocksteady, Blaze
Rocksteady,
Battle,
Blaze Battles.
all of them. I learned
How
from
many-
one of the best.
how many stars?
I had a great teacher, and his name was Breeze Everflowing.
Woo! Woo! Y'all don't even know who that is. Y'all don't even know who that is. Yo, Breeze, I remember being at the Pyramid, having no clue on who Breeze Ever Flown was. By the end of the show, I had to walk up to him and be like, yo, you're amazing, bro.
Yo, he came to my show in Florida. We was just doing a prelude to the Middle Passage tour. Just like leaking joints and just doing small venues, pack them in for the fans. And he came in, he can rhyme in like English, and he's from Brazil, so he can rhyme in Portuguese too, he flips it. And basically, he was a person that I knew who was a freestyler who was really good and was the head of a crew called Stronghold with a bunch of other people. But he was one of the people that really was like, yo, you have a lot of raw talent. You just have to focus it. And the way he explained it to me is like, you could shoot a hose at a bunch of people and knock them over. That's fine. He said, but if you concentrate that beam of water, you could cut all those people in half.
Yeah.
I thought about that for a while. I was like, thank you, Breeze. I shall cut all these people in half. And I went for, and listen, I turned the strong points into the weak points. I made people feel less confident in themselves. I would see if I could make them stumble. You take any angle you can, right? You distract them by turning them against the crowd. You turn the crowd against them. You force them to take a position that they wouldn't normally take, right? You want to diss me? Okay, fine. You know what I mean? Whatever you want to do, but you find a way to kind of to make their attacks useless. You know what I mean? Like they were playing before.
I call that taking your legs. First round.
Before 8 Mile, there were plenty of rappers I've seen who diss themselves, right? And the realest thing I thought about that fucking movie is when he goes home with nothing. Because that's exactly the shit that used to happen. We went home with $200 fucking dollars. 200. Yeah, we thought we was the man because we could pay for everybody's meal at the Westport Diner, right? Because we could go to Gray's Papaya and get food. Like niggas was battling to eat. We were like animals in SeaWorld. We were doing tricks for food. Like niggas was starving.
I got to say that I'm the best and get that respect.
Because all the niggas I was with, man, they came from water and cornflakes. Like niggas had nothing, bro.
Have you ever been on the same event as Eminem?
Yeah, I opened up for D12, and I think
I'm not talking. I'm talking about back then with Scribble Jam. And all that stuff.
No. I'm trying to think. No, he did the Scribble, I think, the year before. And then I was locked up from 98 to 99. So by then, he had already moved to doing, like, music. Penn actually did an event with him and then hung out with him a couple times. And then the person that I knew, that I actually could say that I knew and that I was cool with was Proof. And he was a really down-to-earth dude.
Yeah.
And man...
Rest in peace.
Rest in peace, of course. And big shout out to Detroit and Proof's family. Always show major love. And I always showed him major love because when we first met, I remember there was some tension because Green Lantern had just left JD and I just did a project with Green. And then me and him just sat in the room and talked because I was with a bunch of people and he was with a bunch of people and he just had like a really fresh perspective and I felt like he had such good energy. Like he was a peacemaker, a good person. And when I heard he got killed, I was genuinely heartbroken. Yeah. So I can't imagine how it affected his friends. And that's something else I tell people, like, you know, maybe Jay Arch wasn't the most prominent rapper in the crew, but he was my heart. Like, he was a good dude. He was a person who talked me out of hurting a lot of people. Yeah. Like, he was a person that everybody thought he was
That you wouldn't expect it.
6'8", 400 pounds.
He was the gentle giant.
Right.
He was really the gentle giant. But if you didn't know him, he was just the giant that was gonna hurt you if you did the wrong thing. You know what I'm saying? But
so good.
Talking with him, conversations, and chilling with him, like, you get a different perspective. You know what I mean?
Right. And I think what was interesting is I remember that he told me that he was like, I only was violent because I was bullied in school. And he was like, and I was bullied in school because I was the biggest kid. And people always made fun of me. And the reason they got away with it is because whenever I retaliated, they would say that I hit them and I started it. Right. So he's like, everybody would always say I was stupid because I was big, and they would make fun of me because, you know what I mean? Because I didn't have money for braces and shit. Right. And I'd be like, my nigga, I was broke as hell. Niggas used to call me toast and coffee because the only thing I could afford to eat was toast and coffee. 50 cents for coffee, 50 cents for toast.
What age was that? You was
I was
drinking coffee?
I was like 14 years old. I couldn't
14, you was going toast and coffee?
Niggas
Who was drinking coffee?
Dude, when I started robbing people, I finally could afford like the lobster fried rice over there on 135th. So I was like, that I literally stole, not just to eat, obviously I could eat at home, but I remind people, they try to charge you at the lunch counter. And my pops was an immigrant, so he was like, here's $1 for lunch and $1 for this. And I'm like, I'm gonna have to spend this $1 getting to school because I'm not gonna make the bus. Then if I have to spend this $1 on lunch or on breakfast, I don't get no $1, I don't get nothing for lunch.
Right.
So I just saved up them dollars and I bought a weapon and money started flowing. And it was like, hey, everybody was ready to give it up. But no, I think one thing that I always remember about like that time and the people that taught me it is like I say, everybody looked out and I felt like there was a big community. And it was also, if one other thing I could bring up that was different from my era is there were a lot of places where everybody would just congregate that were open.
Yeah.
Right? Like Fat Beats.
I feel like we're
People
missing
would
that
just
now.
Be there. There would just be a place where people would be.
The pyramid.
And then afterwards, it was always a marketplace, right? For music, for merchandise. You could get anything.
Right.
And it was just, you knew it was going right to the artist. So it was pretty much the most grassroots thing in there, which is also interesting because when I do go to the battles nowadays, that's something I don't see.
Right.
I don't see enough artists selling music. Once in a while I see merch,
Right.
but I don't see a lot of people moving music.
Right.
A lot of battle rappers don't even have interest in making music,
maybe
which is
some
kind of
other
crazy
form, yeah.
because like every time like a battle rapper's in town, doesn't matter what the battle rapper. I mean, there's a handful that do make music, but I'm always like, hey, come to the studio and let's make music, and it's almost never gets done because they're like, battles. I don't really make
There are,
music.
shout out to Arsenal.
There's like a handful. Like I like Tay Rock's music. I know Arsenal does music.
Hitman.
Cortez,
yeah.
of course, he's really good at it.
Yo, Twerk, I didn't mention this in any of the other episodes, but Twerk has a song called Oasis.
Is it off the Jerusalem?
No, it might be on that project, but I think it's on the Ruin Your Day
Avocado,
Avocados compilation album. Bro, that's my joint.
Dope.
That's my
What's
joint.
up,
I
man?
ran it
Dope.
back so many
glad to
times.
hear that, man.
Yeah.
What's up?
Yeah.
Shout out to Twerk.
Yeah, shout out to Ray, shout out to Ray.
Working in prisons, what made you, teaching and everything. What do you teach and like what
But
made
before you answer that, because
Okay, go
I
ahead, my bad.
want to, you kind of introduced me to that. Where I remember getting a call from you one day and you were like, yo, I do this program for, kids that get in trouble, and rather than go to prison or juvenile detention center, they have to do this program, would you like to come through and speak? And I was like, yeah, cool. And I met up with you that day, and we went there, and you asked me if I wanted to go first, and I regret not going first. Because this is a hard act to follow, as you can tell, you know what I mean? And I remember you started speaking to these kids, about values and what society would like them to believe is important, what they spend their money on, what they gravitate to, but what is the actual butter. There's guns and guns and butter. It was kind of like a guns and butter kind of conversation. And I remember you saying to them, look at me, like a fucking bum, don't I? Well, check this out. And you went in your pocket and you pulled out so much money and just dropped it on the table. And I said to myself, I only got $300. How am I gonna compete with this? You know what I'm saying? What am I gonna say after this? But I remember how powerful that program was, and meeting one of the kids years later and finding out he was into music, he has his own group, and he was like, yo, you don't remember you came to the program, you and Immortal spoke that day, and I was like, oh, wow. And he's like, yeah, we got a group, we over here, we moving the CDs. And I'm like, yo, that's dope. And I went on to do the same thing upstate New York. But I always wanted to thank you for introducing me to that. That was dope. How do you feel? Because I'm sure it's about, you've been doing this for like 8-9 years strong.
On and off, almost 10 years. Yeah.
10 years.
I was incarcerated when I was really young. And I'm gonna be honest with you, one of the hardest things about being locked up is I'm a person who likes to help other people. So if I see somebody in the street getting jumped, I'm gonna be like, yo, what the fuck y'all doing? Like, obviously I'm not stupid, I'm not gonna run in and get ice picked in the gun.
Right,
But I'm gonna be like, yo, what the fuck is this? The first weapon is your voice.
Right.
Man, woman, everyone should know that. Somebody pulls out a gun, what the fuck you got a gun for? That's not dry snitching. You helping the people behind you and the mother get her child the fuck out the fucking bodega before some kid gets killed.
Right.
So I'm a person who likes to help people. But I'm gonna just tell people who have never been incarcerated, you can forget that. Because when you see someone else getting jumped by 5 people, that ain't none of your fucking business.
Right.
You can't mind someone else's business. Because guess what? If you jump in, now you got beef with 5 other random Bloods, Crips, Latin King, people you didn't even know. And here's the other problem. You don't know what this person did. Did they rape somebody? Did they steal from someone on the inside?
Right.
And here's what the hardest thing the OG told me. He goes, even if he didn't, even if he's fighting off being victimized, that still ain't none of your fucking business. And I've definitely been in situations where I've seen motherfuckers just beating someone like an animal and doing crazy shit, and I've just been like,
Gotta look
and
the other
been
way.
like, you know, and it hurts to be that way because I'm a person, like I said, who likes to do things. So I thought to myself, one day I had enough, and I heard some dudes and they were scheming on a kid in the shop. They were like, "Oh, we're gonna get this dude." And I rolled up there. I called my homie who was, you know, people roll and split themselves up by race in prison, but they're all united by class. Because if any of them had a $10 million lawyer, they wouldn't fucking be there. Which always begs the question from the smartest kid in the class, what happens when there's a millionaire in jail? And I say, he's the guiltiest nigga there because he had the $1 million lawyer and he still couldn't get the fuck off.
Right.
But people do divide themselves.
Right.
But it was rare because I stepped out the group of Ricans and I went over to a dude that I knew who I was just cool with, who was blood, and I was like, yo man, they about to violate this little kid and that shit ain't right. And I had enough today. And I went over there and he came with me and I said, nah, y'all niggas don't get to decide this. Now, fuck you. And that day, I think I just, whatever. So I didn't become nobody's OG, nobody's big homie, but I would just tell people like, yo man, shut up if they were talking too much about things they shouldn't be. Or I would just, I guess I grew older that day because I was like, you know what? Let me just make sure that everybody don't fall in the same fucking hole.
I do kind of have a say-so.
And I got to a point where I said, I can help other people not make the same mistakes I've made. I can show people the greatest tool of teaching, which is show people, have the humility to show people your personal failure. Like I always remind people, if the big homies on the block are just talking about all the bitches they fucked and all the money they make and all the things they did right, then they're not teaching you anything. They're just bragging to you.
Right.
And you a sucker for listening. A person who really teaches you tells you, this is how I broke my own heart. This is how I pushed someone away that was trying to love me and I couldn't accept it because I was hurt and because someone did horrible things to me when I was a kid. This is when I fucking screwed up a job because I was trying to put other niggas on rather than get my situation right. And I let somebody else getting hired fuck me out of a job. Please don't do that. I loaned $10,000 to my brother and then I realized that you don't loan family money. You give it to them and there ain't no fucking people giving it back.
Right.
Bop. You get lessons of the day. And it was like, cool. I had already had some of those life lessons from my master. So I was born in Harlem. I learned to hustle, all these things. But one thing I realized, that I met a lot of people, whether they black, white, Asian, Latino, they were born hustlers, right? Born hustlers. But I never met a person, any race, religion, that was born knowing how to invest. No one's ever born knowing the stock market or knowing real estate. They have to be taught these things. No one's born knowing the alphabet. You learn it not through a numerical scale, through a musical scale. Everything revolves around music. So what I tell people is when you're absorbing these things, I said to myself, can I stop somebody from falling in? If I stop one person from falling in. So whenever I went to the classes, the way I would captivate people is by teaching them from my failures. I would say, yes, my parents saved up to send me to college from the moment we moved to America. I was one of them kids that got into a really good school and then I started doing stupid shit. And I ended up in prison and my parents spent all the money that they had saved for me and they spent it on a lawyer so I wouldn't go to jail for 10 years like my fucking idiot co-defendant. And I didn't rat on nobody. and I took my fucking lick like a man. And then when they told me I could get out, and they said all I had to do was sign a piece of paper, I turned the paper down, and I had to see my mom crying and behind the glass and say, well, why can't you just come home? And I said, because Mom, they want me to sign this piece of paper that names other people, and then they'll always keep a piece of me here, Mom, always, and I can't do that. And she's like, well, fuck that. It's not about the world, Mom, it's about me. So like I learned these harsh lessons as a kid. I learned what it was like to not have human contact, to be thrown in a hole for 60 days, and then to be thrown in a hole again another 45. For what? I didn't do anything. What the fuck are y'all doing to me? And then when I finally began to start like opening myself up to talk to these kids, I realized that, man, they had been through things that I couldn't even imagine. And I realized that the so-called super predators, these scary Black and Latino kids, these scary poor white kids, man, all of them were just people who had been physically abused as kids, or sexually abused or hurt. And they were doing what they did as a defense mechanism to keep people away from them. You realize, why do people in prison hate pedophiles so much? And here's part of this, the reason is that they feel like they're never gonna get out, and someone else hurt a child and they never hold theirs. The other one that they don't like to mention and that people don't talk about is that a lot of people in there have been hurt as kids. And they feel like because that person did something to them, somehow they missed their destiny. It put them on an altered course. I wasn't supposed to be this murderer, this killer. I wasn't supposed to be this angry, hateful person. I was supposed to be a lawyer. I was supposed to be a doctor. I was supposed to be a counselor. I was supposed to be a teacher, a principal. I was supposed to do something. I wasn't supposed to be eating out of and drinking out of the same water where I pissed. Like, the fuck, what am I doing here? And then you see a person that has that frivolous attitude towards people, and they get extremely violent. And what happens is that in prison, they practice what we call selective morality. So everybody could be sitting at this table, and if you a murderer, and you a bank robber, and you a thief, everyone's cool. But rapists and pedophiles are not allowed. And that was a very jarring thing that I saw. Like, people would just be in other people's food, like, excuse me, you done? And they'd be like, now you have to be PC'd up. No, you now you know you have a target on you.
Right.
But I think the biggest thing that hurt me was when I saw children that have sexually abused other children. And at that point, you're thinking in your head, a 13-year-old, why would a 13-year-old touch a 10-year-old? Like, what are they doing? And then you realize, well, that 13-year-old's been touched since he was 5. Like, he's almost repeating behavior. Like, but at some point, then you have this scale where it says, well, at some point, you have to accept the responsibility of your action as an adult. But at what point does that come for an abused child? Like, an ex-girlfriend of mine used to work in New York prison system where she was taking care of kids that had been arrested for prostitution. And
That's tough.
She's like, here's the problem.
I dated a CO that was around
telling
stuff
me
like that.
Most of these kids have been trafficked and stolen from the time they were little. Why are they the ones in jail? Like, they're a victim of being trafficked. I just did a TV show on Manhattan Neighborhood Network about trafficking, and specifically with an officer named Manny Gomez, who goes around and finds people that are trafficked, because he says that the system pays less attention to Black and Latino women that have been trafficked, and also that now when you over 18, like I said, you don't stop being someone's daughter or someone's son, but the epic is not to take a child anymore. They will take a grown-ass adult, a 20, 30-year-old person, and shoot you full of heroin between the toes, get you addicted, and before you know it, in 2 weeks, you don't know where you are, and you're being trafficked in another state. And it's like, well, what the fuck? This is the same pain and misery these people are going through. And if I can't be empathetic to pain and suffering and that kind of thing, then, you know what I mean? There's not redemption for them. There's not redemption for anybody. Right?
So was it your idea to say, well, let me catch them early? Let me do these programs. Let me speak to these kids and just catch them early.
Well, I felt like they were more impressionable, obviously, at that age, but also I think that the system when you're a child is slightly more reformatory. In other words, they have all the classes for math, for science. I wasn't teaching math or science. To his question, I taught a program called Confronting Trauma Through Writing. So we would make children write about, no names, change to protect the innocent. Just write a story about something. And some of them would write crazy stories. You know, Jamal, older brother, shot someone, but he has 2 felonies and Jamal is 10. So he gave Jamal the gun, and Jamal held the gun, and he went to juvenile hall for 8 months, and now he's home, and his brother's free. But then his brother died like a month or two later.
While he was in.
Right. So it's like, God damn it. Like what? Like these are sad stories, but at the same time, they coming from the imagination of a child who's either seen that or been a part of it. Right. And mind you, even if it hasn't happened to you, but it happened in your building,
You're still affected somehow.
You can't not have PTSD because of that as a child. PTSD isn't just for Iraq war veterans. You know what I mean? It's for people who undergo horrific trauma. Like, will you live in a practical war zone, or you live without the comfortable idea of when you're gonna get your next meal or when things are gonna, then it's obviously gonna be like that. And I feel like that's an interesting factor that we have in hip hop, because if you come from poverty, people consider you to be more real. But nobody that's ever been poor will tell you that shit was real. They'll tell you that shit was fucked up.
Tough.
Right.
Is there anybody that you actually, visited or you was helped mentor that came home and, got on their feet and like was reformed or anything like that?
Well, yeah, I mean, a few people were part of the prison program. We were talking about my friend China Mac. He was part of the prison program when he first was paroled. And it was definitely, he learned.
Shout out to China Mac.
Shout out to China Mac. He learned a little bit about the music business through me, and then he went on to do his own thing. There were several people that didn't have a career in music, but they went on to get a stable job. And, unfortunately, there are some people that went back because I think one of the other heartbreaking parts, and I appreciate you bringing this up, is that when you look at the bail system, bro, I could have bailed all these kids out. The bails were like $800.
Yeah.
But I would have to become the primary caregiver and the guard.
Kind of like what Meek Mill was fighting with the whole prison reform.
If I wanted to, all of them could have got out.
That's crazy.
And the other part of it is this whole idea of the absence or the mythology, because I say there's a lot of false narratives in the Black and Latino community, this idea of absentee Black fathers, absentee Latino fathers. I'm not saying that there aren't absentee fathers, but when I went and visited and seen a lot of people that are incarcerated, they're not just missing a father. They're missing a father, a mom. They're handed off to some relative in many cases, or a friend of the family, or grandma. So it's not like they're missing a dad. They're missing an entire family structure. Or they have a father and they're missing a mom. But somehow the family structure is restricted in some way from having more people that are there. And one thing that I think is also missing is when you don't have a generational line of people that are in the family, then there's no one to trickle down knowledge and information.
Right.
For example, we were discussing Malcolm X and what his role would be as an adult to us. Well, then we have to question. We talk about Black and brown fathers just now. What about Black and brown grandfathers? Who teaches the father how to be a father?
Right.
Who teaches the father, hey, at some point, you're gonna hit this kid. And it's not because he did something incredibly wrong. It's because you lack the patience to deal with it because you're 28 years old. And it doesn't make you the worst person in the world. But you're gonna have to accept this idea of you apologizing to your child for doing something wrong.
Right.
Because when I hit you back in 1977 and punched you in the face, that was wrong. And I did wrong, and I did some fucked up shit. And I was going through post-traumatic stress from being back from Vietnam and fighting in a war that I should have never been. Just having an honest conversation.
Exactly.
Where's that generationalness amongst our people? And I think when that's missing, then you don't see knowledge passed down, and it becomes no respect for elders. Fuck those old people. They're fucking dead anyway. Without realizing, man, you be blessed to be their age. Because most of y'all, you don't know when tomorrow is. Some of y'all ain't gonna make it past 28, 29. Some of y'all ain't gonna make it past 19.
Yeah.
And it's like, you be blessed. You making fun of old people. You be blessed to live 40, 50 years.
How does this cycle keep being perpetuated?
Well, I think it's because you have very few conversations about what actually causes it. And people are always trying to treat the symptoms and not the disease itself, right? So they try to treat the symptoms. The symptoms are gang violence, prostitution. These are all the symptoms of poverty and inequality of wealth, right? Even a police system, a police system, what it is, it said it on the Dead Prez album, it's true. A police system only exists when there's a massive gap between wealth. Otherwise, you don't need that, When there exists a giant gap between people who have and don't have, then you need to implement a ratio of control in the room.
Yep. Somebody to force you from getting out of
Somebody
line.
has to be in there, because otherwise people would say, economics, and people get upset, but it's just true. You can quantify it in very brutal ways. Like, Capitalism, imagine if you needed 3 logs to keep your family warm all summer. 3 logs, just to survive. Otherwise, you're gonna freeze to death. And in my warehouse, I have billions of logs. I could give you 3 so your family won't, because they're just logs. They don't mean anything to me. I'm not gonna miss any of them.
Right.
But you're gonna freeze, and so are all your kids, and they're all gonna die. And I don't give a fuck. And all the logs are mine, and it doesn't matter. Now,
reality.
when I see it that way, the person who holds the logs sounds like a monster, like the worst person in the world, but that's the smiling guy on TV who you're voting for.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the asshole who's the president.
It's the billionaires
That's the
walking
billionaire
around.
class who exists. I
Yeah.
don't care that you don't have enough money to
Basically.
live. As long as I can get some more numbers in this imaginary video game that doesn't even exist.
Yep.
Right.
It doesn't exist.
Countries will starve.
Now, this has been a message
Right,
from you for like a decade.
right. You would think they would have got it by now.
It's like a decade.
I think and you said something earlier where you were like we learned through notes and tones and stuff like that. Was that your goal with all your projects? Like, because I know you personally, so I know that you take time out to actually do research,
Right,
like extensive research before you write a song.
right.
Because you want to be accurate. You don't want to lead anybody astray. You want to misquote anything. You don't want to, you want to be that symbol of you're going to get the facts from me, whether you like it or not. This is what it's going to be.
I say to people, as true as that is, I always open myself up to learn and be wrong about things and to expand my mind. And I feel like, for me, the journey started a long time ago. Like, mind you, I was born in a military hospital. I came to Harlem when I was super young, right? I never talked like this when I was a little kid. My mom was horrified when somebody called me a nigger for the first time. She didn't even know it was a white kid. When she found out it was other black people and Latino people, then she had to explain that to me. But I never called myself that growing up. And then someone on the basketball court was like picking teams, and I showed up, and they were like, I got that nigga. I got that nigga. And they pointed at me and they said, you little Puerto Rican nigga, I got you. And I'm like, I'm not Puerto Rican, I'm not a nigga. Like, how I told my mom, and my mom's father is black, so she was furious. And she was like, how dare someone say that to you? And then I explained it to her, and she was like, okay, well, I have to break it down now. Sometimes people use this word. And mind you, I'm like 7 years old.
I thought this was a bad word.
She was like, listen, sometimes people use that as a colloquialism. They use it to, that's another thing that was interesting in my household. I was never talked to like a baby. I was always talked to like I was an adult, like I had to get shit done. So my dad was super like, he came from the Peruvian military. He didn't want to hear shit.
Where your parents from?
Peru.
Both?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was also like a survivalist. So they would take me out to like a river. Obviously not like like a Mississippi River, but like a small like lake or pond, a stream. And my dad would row halfway through. He had like an inflatable boat. And in the middle of the river, he would make me get out and swim. But he would always be near to make sure like I didn't think. He was always made sure I was a good swimmer. And I never put it in my head. And then I realized later on that the #1 cause of drowning for toddlers and kids is not heart disease, leukemia, it's drowning. So how come people don't teach their kids how to swim? You could drown, at a day camp that niggas from the hood got sent to. Remember the little day camp niggas went up?
Yeah.
I remember crazy, freaky shit happened when I was like 8 years old. A girl in the camp, not that day, but the day before we got there, she fell off her bike and she hit her head, knocked herself out, and she drowned in 2 inches of water because her face was in the puddle. You could drown in 2 inches of
You
water.
only need a teaspoon of water
Right.
to drown.
Imagínate. So it's like, I survived so many fucked up, crazy things in my life. So I think maybe the drive that I had was to just not see people make the same mistakes. I've broken my own heart. I've fucked myself out of money before. Right. I don't like to see, I didn't like that feeling. So I want to make sure other people understand that they don't have to bring that upon themselves. You don't have to torture yourself to write good things. You have to live a miserable life to be creative. You can be creative and be happy as well.
Right.
You just have to put yourself in the mind frame to be able to do it. Sometimes people think that struggle brings creativeness. No, it's a dedication to the continuation of writing and keeping going. And you have something to prove when you're young. You have no accolades, so you spend more time on the craft.
It's the focus during the struggle. Dig it.
Do more like seminars or like, besides like the prison, which like your own seminars?
Yeah, like I'll do it in colleges. Like I'll go speak at colleges if people want to know more about like the musical aspect, how I started, and then I explain to them that I was taught the business, like the culture. I had advantages other people didn't have. Like for example, KRS-One would throw a block party and be at my house, and then or not my house but my block, and then afterwards on right in front of Grant, the projects, kids were asking him questions. We got to ask Rakim questions. Like as a New Yorker, we take for granted the fact that we grew up around so many legends, and you can pick their brain, and other people can only do it through YouTube questions that someone else asks, and it's like I had a first row seat to these people, to Cool G Rap, to Nikki D, to you know what I mean, to Chuck D, to these people who were at the Apollo, because we would just be posted up in front of the Apollo as little kids, like, yo, who's coming in today? Because they would all go through the side entrance. The Banana Republic and Red Lobster, that wasn't there. Anybody who knows Harlem, that place was a fucking lot for like 40 years, and that the lot had a side entrance. So everybody would be in the side entrance. A lot of rappers got at that side entrance. A lot of people got. And it was funny because a few people, I hate to say it, they've been robbed, but they were robbed so nicely. Because it was like, people felt bad. They were like, yo, my nigga, I love your music, but I gotta have that nigga. I'm not gonna say who his name is, but I'll tell niggas off camera. There was a dude who had a very nice chain, and niggas rolled up on him. And I don't know the people, but I know loosely the group, and they were like,
My bad.
I love you, fam, but niggas gotta eat. And everyone was saying that for the rest of the summer. That's what everybody was saying, like, I love you, my nigga, but niggas gotta eat. Like, everybody in Harlem was saying that the whole summer. And it was fucked up, because niggas jacked this nigga's chain and he didn't do a show in Harlem again for like 15 years.
Damn.
I just think because your words
I'm
are
trying
so
to think.
That's Googleable.
your words are so impactful, and like, you know, I speak to a lot of rappers, and somehow, like, every time when your name is mentioned, they can always like take at least one quote or something that you've told them.
Yeah.
So, you know, like, you going to colleges and prisons, I think that's great, but I also think, you know, you yourself can have like, I would attend everything you do. Like, if you said, hey, every Sunday I'm here.
I would advise you to attend the seminars, because personally, you get reminded when you hang around him that he's from Harlem, and he's gonna do Harlemish things to you.
I feel like everyone does, but that's what makes us like a double threat, right? It's because, like, you know, anybody I knew who can combine the two, right? Wisdom, knowledge with like street smarts are just like way ahead, you know, myself included.
Right. Fig, you're not getting it, but it's cool.
I just think,
because
I think it's dope.
I appreciate that, and I think I definitely want to...
Flowers, that's what
No, thank you.
Flowers,
I
definitely.
wanted to expand definitely the program to make it something steady, which is why I did it like all summer one time, and then I would just teach a whole semester through. But I definitely would open it up for other people so they could learn not just from the things that I did right, but the things I did wrong. Right. The way that music changed during my era to streaming. People always ask me the one crazy question, which is, how did you maintain the fan base for years without putting out music?
Can I answer this question?
Yeah, because I
think he'd be great at answering it.
No. This is something that he told me real early on in my career. He was like, listen.
See quotes, man.
He said, math.
You gotta do the voice. I didn't talk like that.
You can follow the trend. And the trend may get you money. May get you a whole lot of fucking money. But guess what? The next time another Joe Smo comes up and he's better at that trend than you, you're out of the picture. But if you tell people the truth.
Yo, he made me sound like I'm a villain in a kung fu movie, right? Like, hey, if you don't fucking come over here.
You've done the kung fu villain many times in front of
bullshit.
me. You've done the kung fu villain many times in front of me. Don't let me talk about that time. Hey, Mav, come over. Let's watch some battles and counting the money in front of me. We could get to that. But anyway, he was like, if you tell people the truth, if you give it to them straight up, you speak from here, you may not have all the people that follow the trend, but the ones that do follow you will follow you forever. Mm-hmm. He told me that before I went on tour with him. And when we went on tour, every night I watched that whole crowd transform into a line that just wanted to say thank you, buy some merch, have a conversation with them. I'm talking about sometimes we were there longer than the actual show.
Right.
After the show. To the point where like the club owners are there like, yo, man, still people here. They still want to buy. They
the
still want to
register's
talk.
still open. You can't stop that. And also, I remind people, it's good to know the boundaries. You cannot let fans walk all over you. You have to set boundaries. You can't just touch me, come up to me. But also, you have to have a lot more patience than I've seen. Even me, I've been impatient with people, and I regret that. And I'll take this time to apologize to anybody that I was fucked up with. But sometimes when you mob by like 800 people, that's one thing I always remember. Man, be patient. Someone's gonna ask you the same question 7 times. Someone's gonna try and grab something off the table, and they don't mean it like they're gonna steal. They're just looking at it. So you gotta, I've definitely been like foul to people sometimes. Like, man, they'll ask me something like 4 times. I mean, I'm like, man, shut the fuck up, man. You heard what the fuck I said. I said it on stage and I'm saying it now. And now I look back and I'm like, that's a fucking 20-year-old kid. He don't fucking know no better. Plus, he's stammering and nervous, right? Like, I'm from Harlem. I know what it is, bro. I see a little kid running around the street, a white lady gonna grab a purse and clutch her pearls. I look at a little kid running around the street and I'm wondering, what are you running from? Only reason I know little kids running around the street is racing each other or they running from something. You're not running to something, you're running from, you look scared.
Right.
And that's because I look at people as human beings.
Right.
And I don't have this fear or not understanding of people. I grew up around everyone, so here in New York was always the melting pot. So I fought every kind of person, you know what I mean? I've interacted with every type of person, whether it was black, Latino, Asian gangs. I mean, I knew everybody when I was a kid.
You've pretty much been around the world with this.
We went down to Chinatown to buy fucking fireworks, knives, guns when we was kids. That shit was a fucking market. Now you can't buy a pair of nunchucks down there. They're like, no, we don't sell that to people.
You can still get fireworks here and there.
Right, here and there.
Yeah.
But uptown, you know what I mean? There's a fucking market in the street. Heroin, here we go. And I'm just, now it's just like, oh, whoa. Now they kicked all the drug dealers off the corner so they could sell it at CVS.
Right.
That's where your heroin is. They didn't get rid of niggas because they wanted to get rid of drug dealers. They got rid of you because you were competition for the store. That's it. That's why y'all niggas in the Bing.
Do you feel like they're gonna do the same thing with marijuana?
I think that marijuana is gonna become the new beer of America. I think Budweiser and all of them are smart enough to line up. Coors Light, you notice all these Budweiser people. One other thing that I think is interesting about marijuana industry is that if you look at the people who are getting into it and have bought the licenses early, the majority of them are law enforcement, or they're connected to law enforcement somewhere. Like in California, some of the biggest places that they have, the people that run it are ex-law enforcement. And I've seen the way that they react when they get shaken down. Because whether it's black or Latino gangs show up, yo, you operating in our neighborhood, homie. What about the tax? The blood tax, the Crip tax, the SA tax. You gotta pay something.
Right.
Okay, sure. Would you like to meet the company president tomorrow? He's an ex-gang intelligence officer. I'm sure he'd love to know your name and know what you're doing.
Smart.
All right, man, take care. Do your fucking thing. You got to be protected by somebody down there. Listen, they will shake you down. And I think that business already is interesting because you'll see the way that it operates. For example, you can't move trees in bulk from California to Oregon or Oregon to Washington. Each state is relegated into itself, so it's a closed market. Right. So that's why some places get super surplus. And that's why maybe like, I want to say a few years ago, the weed in Oregon, like Portland, dirt fucking cheap, whereas you went to California, double, triple the price, only because of the surplus. So now I'm wondering if it is legalized, how are they gonna do that across state lines? Right. And who's gonna have those licenses? And
the tax is like 12%, right? It's crazy.
And the other part is, how can the government pay its bills with drug money when it's spent the last 40 years locking people up for paying their bills with drug money?
I think that's the flip side, right?
We talked about this, and one of the people I've been working with, a professor named Jim Vredos from John Jay College, who was talking about restorative justice. That was the term that him and a lot of people had began to use. And restorative justice simply means that if the state's going to make billions of dollars a year, then those cases need to get wiped. People need their voting rights back. people need to have the strikes that are put against them in family court and the inability to see their kids because of this stuff.
Right.
Those have to be corrected. Criminal cases where people no longer have can't get a job or they have felonies, those need to be stricken from the record. That's what I mean. If they're gonna wipe their slate clean,
They should do that for
then everybody else needs it. If they're gonna bail themselves out morally, right? Because it used to be a moral failing. That's, oh my God. And in the Latino community, it's 10 times worse. Because these people get shit-faced all fucking day, still go to work. But tu fumaste un poquito, ay, el diablo, oh my God, he's like the devil. We gotta take you to church and fucking pray over you. Shut up. If you were high, then you wouldn't have been doing half the shit you was doing.
Right.
Right? And then when the shit that some of my relatives say to me trips me out. They're like, what if you got in a car and drove while you were high?
Right.
And I'm like, what if somebody drank liquor, got into a car, and drove like you do, motherfucker? Fuck out of here, man. You know what's gonna happen if I get high, get in the car? I'm gonna drive 25 miles an hour to Waffle House. You know what happens when you get drunk? You hurt people. Shut the fuck up.
Word. It's a big difference.
Come on, bro.
It's a big difference.
So I think that's definitely things that are gonna have to be addressed. I think also the thing that a lot of people are very critical are the optics of it, right? Little white girl starts a business. Oh man, great entrepreneur. Brother started a bunch of weed dealers. You know, Jay-Z, the crack dealer for the rest of his life, right? Which means that JFK's father, bootlegger, for the rest of your life. What the fuck? Like, come on, you can't clear up your shit. You want to play that game with me? Okay, Thomas Jefferson.
Oh.
Old school Jeffrey Epstein of his fucking time. Country was founded by Jeffrey Epstein. Don't fucking play with me, dude. George Washington. You know, he didn't have wooden teeth. The teeth he had were the slaves' teeth that he knocked out of their fucking mouth, that he wanted to put in his mouth. Don't play with me. Don't tell me about the negativity and the criminal history of our people. I will hold up a mirror and show you the criminal history of this country, which is horrific compared to anything that we've had. And whenever people say, "Oh, get over it," you know, I just seen that interesting meme running around with the whites only fountain, and then they show you the same dude, and he's not that much older. He like he less than he's younger than my father.
Wow.
And he was born in that era. And I remind people that the reason why I think I've had a lot of success with shout out to my brother Rizza Islam on the West Coast, talking to people, is because individuals have approached me and said, well, what have indigenous people gotten against fighting black people? Nothing, right? What did being a Buffalo Soldier get you? They told you was gonna get the right to vote in the early 1800s. They didn't get to you till 1967. Right. America didn't become a democracy until 1960, and it's still not.
Right.
So I'm like, yo, y'all not gonna play that game with me.
Well,
so
no
whenever people run that gambit about what our people have done wrong and the stigmatism against them for selling drugs, we're the middleman, right? I always tell people El Chapo, he was in the news, El Chapo. I'm gonna get in trouble for this, but fine. He's a middleman. He's not the boss. He represents the middleman between the cartels of Mexico and the American cartel. When I say the American cartel, I don't mean a guy with a sombrero and a fucking mustache. No, an American cartel is run by a white guy, a guy who has friends on both, I don't know his name, but a guy who has friends on both sides of the aisle, who has access to legal drug and pharmaceutical companies and illegal stuff. You know, it's not a mystery that we invaded Afghanistan and heroin production goes up 95% to the highest it's ever been. That's not a.
For those who don't know, Afghanistan is like they make a lot of heroin out there.
Right, and you know, my country, Peru. Here's another funny one. You've heard the phrase Colombian drug lord many times in the American lexicon, but you never heard Peruvian drug lord. Why? We moved 20. Well, not we. I'm not. Peru moves 20. About, I would say, between, depending on the year, about 25 to almost 35% more heroin than all the other states of South America combined.
Cocaine or heroin?
Cocaine. The reason that it's not as discussed is because we have Peru has a direct deal with the cartel of the United States. And the Colombians have always had to go through Mexico, which is what gives them all that extra shit that goes along with it. Right. Meanwhile, drop off in the Virgin Islands, drop off at a military base, drop off here, right? When your militaries are like this, it's gonna happen, and at the end of the day, you just need some method of control. And people realized a long time ago we're going to have to control these 400 million people who live in this country. Hate the government or like it. It's an achievement to control 400 million people and have them in the same place and not destroy one another, right? Anyone ever throw a party at their house? And you involve alcohol? You did some clean, you know what I mean? That's some clean. A government got a party with 400 million people going on, right? As much as you hate them or think what they're doing is wrong, I always tell people, before we imagine revolution, just be prepared for anarchy and what that costs. Because that's insane. No government, no nothing, the full total breakdown. And that's why I remind people, that's why people revere Malcolm X so much, because he was a person who took all those things into account. He was a person that just wasn't doing blind, reckless shit. He was like, yo, there are gonna be consequences. When the revolution finally does start, there will be people who get killed on the front line. There are people who will have to die. There are people who will have to sacrifice. We'll have to find a contingency plan to protect the women and children.
That's how this works.
Right? It's like, oh my God. Now you're talking about the nuts and bolts of revolution, right? Che Guevara, a controversial figure. What's the difference between him and other people? He actually said, if someone gets condemned to execution, right? They have to face the death penalty, and I gave them that sentence, I'll be in the firing squad.
Right.
Some people found that barbaric. Is it any less barbaric than Arnold Schwarzenegger, who killed Tukey Williams by signing a piece of paper, but didn't have the courage to pull the lever himself? What is the difference, right? And I guess that's where you get into the nuts and bolts of a human being, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, are you less of a murderer because you ordered it rather than pulled the trigger?
Not at all.
Ah.
However, there's a detachment. It's just like the people who launch missiles from drones
A corporate
are not the same as the people who shoot bullets from guns.
Right.
They don't feel the same guilt. They don't feel the same
like a video
attachment to what happens. Yeah, it's like I hit this button, something blew up.
You can see it, but you
have
like,
to
you know.
face it.
Yeah.
Which is interesting about warfare. Like in the past, in order to go to war, you couldn't go unless a member of your family led it. Like if you were the king, you couldn't just send a dolce. It had to be like your son or you.
Right.
And I think what was interesting about like the development of warfare is that we've been getting farther and farther apart from each other. We started out real close, and we saw what war cost us. You know, arms, legs, limbs, cracked open heads.
Right.
And we didn't learn from that.
I think that started with democracy. That's where the separation started to come. Where we're just the ones making the decisions. Protect our families. We have to make these decisions, but send everybody else out.
But I think, look, it's democracy, or it could be the republic in general, because at the end of the day, it looks like a functional system, but whatever government exists, at the end of the day, you have to recognize that it's simply just people who rule over other people.
Right.
And they created a bureaucracy or a system in between to give the image that somehow this is all going to run in other people's favor.
Okay.
But it doesn't. It usually, there's an old book, I think Robert Michaels wrote it. It's called The Iron Law of Oligarchy. It says that whether a government is communist or capitalist, socialist, social democrat, whatever you choose to be, he said eventually they all fall victim to the iron law of oligarchy. Oligarchy means the rule of the few.
Yeah.
He said if it's a Senate, it becomes a few people in the Senate who control everything. A big Politburo, a communist, now we have a tiny group of people and an inner council. A presidency, sure, now we have a president, and now he has more powers than he ever had before. A king can't rule alone, right? That's an interesting thing.
He needs a hand.
He needs a hand, and the most important hand that he gets is from God. What happens when dictatorship's not enough? That's when monarchy comes into play, where you have to say, no, it's not just that I'm king, it's that God made me king. That's
Or I'm God.
Right, and then people get involved in the control of fear and repression not being enough. It's not enough for a human being, I think. I think the ultimate control is that idea of faith and then what a person actually believes, because I think a human being I've met from all around the world, I've been everywhere, the Middle East, Asia, Africa, Latin America, and all human beings, if I can study their history, are the same. You can keep them enslaved, you can keep them on the ground, but the moment you take your foot off them, they'll stand up and they'll fight against you.
Right.
It doesn't matter if it's Britain occupying Ireland, if it's Japan occupying Korea, China. It doesn't matter if
France
it's
or Haiti.
France and Haiti. Eventually, you have to stay down there with the people. Because the moment you let go of them, human beings are just wired to stand up and say, get the fuck away from me, get off me. It's like we were bred to be warriors, and it doesn't matter. Even the most calm human being, they see someone being abused in their family, they want to protect them. They have the natural inkling to fight. So you can't just conquer us with that. You have to make us believe in you as an oppressor. We can't just fear you. Right. We have to believe that we wouldn't be anywhere without you. We have to believe that somehow you brought us someone who saved our souls because we were living in ignorance without you. And even if we choose the communist perspective, then we start to believe that our revolution began with a white man in Europe who wrote a manifesto when you came to the dark jungles of Africa and Latin America to teach us the complex concept of sharing. We knew what that was for thousands of years.
All right. This is crazy. Oh, man.
It's almost done.
Yeah, okay. This conversation can go on and on and on. You mentioned Diablo about 5 minutes back. How real was Dance with the Devil?
I could take you to the building in Harlem where it happened. However, I always tell people that I changed aspects of the story, obviously. Like I wasn't on a roof, I never raped a woman, like get the fuck out of here. But at the same time, I felt like because it happened in where I was, and because it was a story that I'd heard constantly, I was like, yo, this is like a ghetto fairy tale.
Yeah.
I gotta tell this shit. But then I realized it's not a ghetto fairy tale. This is a part of this is a part of human history, right? There's never been a song about rape, but at the same time, if we're all alive, here's an interesting thing, we're all related. Every single person who's alive is related because we all have an uncle who never had any kids and a great aunt who never had any kids. So their bloodline died.
Right.
The fact that we're all alive means we come from some branch that's maybe 2,000, 3,000 years ago.
Right.
So every time a man rapes a woman, they're both two people who are alive, and he's raping someone who in some way, shape, or form, maybe
is
2,
related.
3, or maybe 17, or maybe 175, which is a large number, but represents thousands of years, 175 generations. He's raping a part of himself. And also, one interesting fucked up thing is that we don't realize how many people are the product of violation. In other words, marital rape was only a crime in the late 80s, only became a crime. So as long as you were married to a woman, you could do anything.
You could do anything.
Choose your property. And I think that's seen through like Roman law tradition. Like if you see in ancient Rome, the man had the power of life and death over his wife and children. In other words, if they felt like they disrespected and they stole from him, he could legally kill his wife and there were no consequences, which is fucked up because a lot of people say that's where the whole Catholic ceremony of the father giving the daughter to the husband, like I no longer have ownership of her, now you have ownership.
Right.
But again.
But the man was always like the hierarchy of the family. Even in the Bible, if a woman made a vow, the husband could disallow it and say, nah, she was bullshitting. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't pay that no mind. And adultery had to involve a married woman. Right. Your husband went out there and he did whatever that was not considered adultery. It had to involve a married woman because there was ownership to it, and that's where the violation came in. But Dance with the Devil being, did you expect like, I'm gonna write this record about this horrible
will talk about
situation,
it for 20 years, 30 years,
and this is gonna be like the breakthrough record of my career? Like,
all right, if I could be totally honest, the part that surprised me is when I got a call, I think it was 2007, 2008, and someone was like, yo, I want to send you some crazy shit. And I was like, what? And they were like, yo, just watch this newscast. And they sent me a newscast from England. I forget what city, it was like Manchester, Liverpool. Yeah. And they were called the Dance with the Devil Murders. And someone had stabbed someone. I think it was England, I'm not sure, but it was somewhere in Europe. And someone had basically violated a girl that they were somehow related, I don't know if it was a cousin or stepsister, somebody that was related to, and then had stabbed them to death. And then afterwards, the person found out that it was they were related to them, and the person took their own life. And they were just like, yo, this is...
And they titled it after your record.
And then someone called me about it, called me from the station. They were like, well, how do you feel about this? And I say, I didn't invent this scenario. I said, this has been going on for years, right? Before me, before hip hop didn't invent rape, right? I said, unfortunately, we're talking about something that we're not gonna get rid of until humanity evolves. Right. We'll still be a primitive species. As long as we're still raping people, we're still a primitive species. We're still a talking monkey. A human being, an enlightened creature, doesn't do things like that.
Right.
And I think that will be that and other things that I see. Killing children at war and thinking that's just a collateral damage. That until we evolve past those things. You know, those simple things. It seems like really simple things. Don't touch nobody that don't want to be touched. Don't force yourself. They seem like really simple things. Fucking things, but you don't get it because you're still part animal and not part divine being. You're feeding into the worst part of what you are, rather than accepting all that you could possibly be. Right. So I think that speaks a lot to it, and I think that song captured that emotion perfectly, and also the fact that it was a story about it so graphically with a horrible ending, because that's the only way that those fucking things end.
Yeah, it was like real.
There's no
Night
fucking
Shyamalan.
There's no happy fucking ending.
Real,
no,
real
but
like
no
the end
ending.
is like, damn, that's it. That's what it is.
No, but like I said, that's what I'm saying. In life, sometimes there ain't no happy endings, right? The bad guy doesn't always get his. Sometimes the bad guy ends up president, senator, you know, head of the company. You know, sometimes the good guy, he gets stabbed in the back and framed.
And that comes full circle to
what
we started this video
about. Or he
about.
dies in a helicopter crash and people ridicule his legacy and rip him apart for things that you know what I mean? Yeah. You had every opportunity to do so. So it could be anything, you know? You don't, that's what I always say, and I always tell people, that's the part that warmed my heart. If I could be heartfelt, that warmed my heart about Pumpkinhead. Because a lot of my friends were mad when he passed away.
Rest
and they
in
were
peace,
like,
PH.
Rest in peace, PH. They were mad that only people were giving him his due then. And I said some shit to all of them from my heart. I said, yo, not for nothing. I read when Robin Williams died, who came to my school as a little kid and did a show for a bunch of people, a bunch of sick kids, and then the rest of us, and was just cool, and he made us all laugh. And when he died, they wrote "Clown hangs himself" on a fucking tabloid. And I said, yo, they disrespected this man who was such a good dude, such a good person. And I said to myself, man, they might be giving him his laurels after he dies, but at least they're acknowledging him. At least I didn't read one bad article shitting on him or trying to take one part of his life where he made a mistake or did some dumb shit and put a spotlight just on that. So I'm grateful that people saw my brother PH in his full capacity. Like, this is all he did. You know what I mean? This is everything that came together. This is what happened. Boom, boom, boom. These are his contributions. And he definitely was a person that influenced me and helped me, you know? When I saw him battle Breeze at the bass battle, I was like, yo, these two dudes are monsters. Yeah. And then I always remember, I make niggas laugh whenever I say this, because first time I ever meet PH, it was before I got locked up. So I must have been like 19, 20. And I told my man, I was like, yo, nigga's 23, man. He's mad old. And everybody was laughing. They're like, yeah, that nigga's mad old, but he cool. He cool for an older nigga. Everybody's like 17, 18. I'm like the oldest nigga there. I'm like 18, 19. I'm like, yo, he's kind of old. And everybody was like, yeah, he's 23. He's mad old. And now I think about 23. He's a fucking baby.
Oh man, PH. If we were to, well, not if. I'm actually doing a timeline on battle rap. And I might need you to come in and speak on some stuff.
I would definitely, anybody, especially PH and Breeze and all the people, and help pave the way for people like me. And, you know, shout out to everybody who's still doing it out there.
That's a fact.
You know, it takes a lot of heart and it takes a lot of encouragement. And just remember, own your shit. Huh?
Real talk.
Own your shit, motherfucker.
That's
inconvenient
that's
for
the
niggas.
message. That's the message, man. Own your shit, man. Own your shit. I want to thank you.
Thank you.
For coming on. I did want to mention the police shooting.
Ooh.
I don't know if you got time.
Gotta get out of here, but
it's all good. We'll talk about that next episode.
Harlem Cuts.
Harlem Cuts, 2310 2nd Avenue. You come in here, you mention Immortal Technique or anybody else that's been on the show, you get a percentage off of your haircut, right? All right, cool. We out of here, man.
Let's get it.
I kick the fucking door off. Take the hinges with the door panel and the wall off. Body's getting hauled off. Lips getting torn off. Leg him with the sword off. He looking like a walking dead zombie trying to crawl off.